Good morning, North Penn High School. I'm Anna Weatherwax, and welcome to North Penn Television's full live coverage of the 2024 North Penn High School Simulated Convention of the No Labels Party. Over the next 2 days, student delegates from all U.S. states and territories will debate the platform of this newly formed No Labels Party and select a candidate for the presidential nominee of the party. Since 1976, North Penn High School has been holding simulated conventions in the year of presidential elections, alternating between Democratic and Republican conventions. This year, students decided to create their own party that will best reflect the platform that represents their stance on the major issues facing the United States in 2024. This is how coverage will work today. We have North Penn television correspondents here in the studio and on the convention floor. Owen Carlin will be conducting interviews throughout the day here in the studio. Owen, what are you looking forward to today?
Hey, Anna, thanks for throwing it to me. I'm really looking forward to getting into the nitty-gritty with each individual campaign manager, learning more about the background of each candidate, and learning more about their policies.
Well, that is just excellent, Owen. I'm real excited to hear from you. And I want to correct myself real quick. I did say we had 2 days for this convention. I did mean to say 1 day. In the past, it has been 2 days. But right now, we're going to throw it down to Alex Gopal and Liz Chung, who are standing by for the start of the convention to provide some context and commentary from the floor. Alex, Liz, tell us what you're seeing today. What's the energy like?
Howdy, Anna. People are, they're trickling in as we speak. We're getting ready. I believe we're about to do the Pledge of Allegiance now. The energy in the room is palpable. I'm quite excited to see what they have to say today.
Well, I can't wait. Can you tell me what the schedule looks like?
Well, Anna, today we're going to, as we're waiting for the student delegates to come in, we're going to get some commentary and some opening remarks from Kyle Hassler, who is the mayor of North Penn, and also some remarks from Mr. Haley, who's the advisor to the mock convention. And the students are going to be debating and discussing about various topics that are often talked about in the political world.
Well, that is excellent. I know we have some hot button issues on the topic for today, so what are we going to be looking at? What kind of topics are we thinking?
So we have a total of 10 topics that we're going to be talking about, and just to name a few, we're going to be talking about student college debt, climate change, the Russia and Ukraine crisis, abortion and the right to privacy, the Middle East crisis that's occurring, and immigration.
Well, while we're still waiting for the people to come up on the stage, can you tell me what you think one of our more hot-button controversial issues is going to be today?
I personally think that the abortion and the right to privacy topic it's very, very controversial, as we know. So I'm thinking it's going to be very interesting to hear the students' opinions on them.
Great. And who are some people to watch today? Any specific people we should be looking out for?
I'm not sure. We'll see. They'll reveal themselves in time, I think.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, while we're waiting, let's do a little fashion. What kind of clothes is everyone wearing? Are we professional dressed? I heard a rumor someone's going to be dressing up in cactus costumes this morning.
I don't see any cactuses. One guy from Jersey came in dressed up really sloppily, but everyone else is just dressed in like their normal school clothes.
Well, that's good to hear.
Well, I, of course, dress professionally. I know what I'm doing.
Sure you did, Alex. You're always dressed on point for this kind of thing.
Indeed. Thank you.
So, Liz, I did hear that we're going to have some drug issues on the ballot today. What can you tell me about that?
So as of right now, we're going to be talking about the fentanyl crisis that's occurring, as long as the legalization of marijuana, which I think are both very interesting topics. There are going to be lots of opinions, lots of differing opinions, so very excited to hear about that.
Well, that's good to hear. So while we're on the topic, what potential candidates are we looking out for today?
Today with us we have representatives from Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Ryan Binkley, Liz Cheney, Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Joe Manchin, Dean Phillips, Vivek Ramaswamy, Josh Shapiro, Jill Stein, Dr. Cornel West, and Marianne Williamson. Oops, my bad.
Well, those are some big names. I know Joe Biden, Donald Trump, every day in the political world, we're always hearing about them. Are there any sideliners we should be looking out for?
I've heard positive things about Dean Phillips.
Dean Phillips. Do you know anything about her platform?
No, but I know the guy representing him, and I know he'll do a good job.
Well, that's great to hear. I know we have a lot of speeches to expect from some of our candidates. Are there any that we should be especially focusing in on?
We're all very excited for the Republican candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley, especially because recently there's been a lot of controversy surrounding them, especially Nikki Haley. So we're excited to see what the delegates are going to say about them.
I personally think we should be taking greater look at the third parties, because they don't often really get a chance to espouse their views in such a way. So it'll be interesting to have their opinions be more mainstream in this instance.
You know, I'd have to agree, Alex. We don't really have an independent party main televised debate, so I'm very excited to hear from the independents, especially the Green Party. So while we're waiting to get started, I want to go through the schedule here. So we have our opening remarks, which are coming up soon. Can you tell us who's going to be giving those?
Mr. Hassler and Mr. Haley.
Ah, well, that's spectacular. Well, we're going to throw it to the podium with some opening remarks from Mr. Brian Haley, our social studies teacher. So let's head on down.
All right, so we are what's called the No Labels Party. We'll get into that in a little bit. Rather than being Democratic or Republican, we wanted to make it truly an independent party day for you. So we will explain that in a little bit. This program started back in 1976, and I told my students this last week. That's before most of your parents were born. And every 4 years since 1976, the North Penn High School Social Studies Department has organized this event to give students a chance to run a program with hundreds of students and engage in political discussions. This is not something you get to do on a regular basis. So we're giving you this opportunity. It goes all the way back to a friend of mine, my mentor, Jim Finnemeyer, who was a social studies teacher here for many years. I cannot read that. What does that say? The convention begins. All right. So we try to simulate how a political party convention actually works for real with the parties. They pick a city every 4 years. So this year, the Democrats are going to Chicago in August for their convention. The Republicans are going to Milwaukee in July for their convention. And the very opening aspect of the convention is a welcoming address from the mayor of the city. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Hassler, who will make the opening address as the mayor of North Penn High School.
Thank you, Mr. Haley. Good morning, North Penn High School. I'm truly honored to stand before you today as we kick off this exciting and momentous event, our 2024 North Penn High School Simulated Presidential Nominating Convention. This gathering not only showcases the spirit of democracy, but also reflects the incredible potential within each of you to shape the future of our nation. As we embark on this journey, let us remember the importance of open dialogue, respect to diverse perspectives, and the power of collaboration. This convention is not just an academic exercise. It is a platform for you, the future leaders of our country, to engage in meaningful discussions, share your ideas, and practice the art of diplomacy. Throughout the day, you'll have the opportunity to step into the shoes of political leaders, advocating for policies and strategies that you believe will lead our nation towards a brighter future. Embrace this experience with enthusiasm, curiosity, and a commitment to understand the complexities of the issues at hand. I would be remiss as mayor of North Penn High School if I did not cover a few housekeeping items for today's exercise. I encourage you to listen actively, debate passionately, and challenge each other's viewpoints with respect and civility. Remember, it is through the exchange of ideas that we can find common ground and innovative solutions to the challenges facing our society. You have been given this opportunity to participate in this event, so please show respect to those who have established it and trusted you by following the directions and rules put forth. Most importantly, know that you must sign in and out of the convention anytime you leave so that we can maintain the security and safety of all participants and the high school at large. Lastly, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all the students, teachers, and organizers who have worked tirelessly to make this convention possible. Your dedication to fostering civic engagement and critical thinking is truly commendable. So without further ado, let the spirited discussions, thoughtful debates, and the collaborative problem-solving begin. May this simulated presidential convention be a transformative experience for all of you. laying the groundwork for a future generation of informed and active citizens. Thank you, and let the democratic process unfold.
All right, now the next step is the presentation of colors by the North Penn JROTC, followed by the national anthem sung by Mr. Clank's team. So you guys can use the microphone right here if you want. There's one right here. All right, and now the presentation of colors.
Color guard. Oh. Present. Colors.
Now for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Forward. Stand up, stand up. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as you can see on the screen behind me, it's an educational program. There's always going to be learning objectives. This is what we're hoping that we can get out of this. This is an open convention. Normally, we would have you role-playing being either Democrats or Republicans. My team of leaders here and I discussed it, and they decided that in this highly polarized climate, if you pay any attention to the news, you can understand that the two political parties do not get along. So we decided to do an open convention to give you an opportunity to avoid the name-calling and partisan bickering, and to just be yourself and speak your own truth, okay? So another aspect of this and why it's an open convention is that, to put it bluntly, most Americans don't want to align with Democrats or Republicans. When they look in the mirror, they don't say, yeah, I'm a Democrat. Yep, I'm a Republican. No, they look in the mirror now and they say, I'm an independent. I don't want to be affiliated with the Democratic or Republican Party. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to vote for a third party. We'll get into that. And you can just see here, public opinion polls are showing us that the average American is not satisfied with the choices that the two parties are giving them. So we're trying to give you an opportunity to make your own choice. Whether it's a Democratic choice, a Republican choice, an independent choice is entirely up to you. We're not going to pigeonhole you into only D's or only R's. And you can see again up here, this is a graphic that shows you just how polarized our society has become. And you can see Easiest way to describe this is that the average Democrat and the middle Democrat, middle Republican, it's called the median Democrat, median Republican, over a period of about 30 years, the ideology of both parties has shifted. The Democrats have shifted further and further left, more extreme left, and the Republicans have shifted more and more to the right, more extreme right. And the middle is kind of getting left out. All right, so we're hoping today that you guys speak your truth and that you can find a middle. This is probably the most glaring graphic that you're going to see. Now, it's a few years ago, but the public opinion from both parties is extremely negative. Democrats don't trust Republicans, Republicans don't trust Democrats, and in fact, large percentages of each party thinks the other party is a danger to the country. We are at a very, very extreme place right now in American politics, so we're trying to avoid all of those kind of problems. Again, looking at the statistics, most voters think that we're on the wrong path, that this country is heading in the wrong direction. Obviously, there's a little bit of a difference between Republicans and Democrats on this graphic. The Democrats have the White House, so they're going to tend to think a little bit more positively about the government. Republicans don't, so they're going to think more negatively about it. If you went back to 2016, 2018, when Donald Trump was in, it was the exact opposite. Republicans thought better of the system, Democrats thought worse. And then lastly, this is the graphic I mentioned at the beginning. This is how do you identify? You've got very small percentages of people who look in the mirror and say, I am a D or I am an R. And most Americans now, not most, not majority, but over 40% of Americans prefer to identify as an independent. So we're making this an independent convention so that you can be truly yourself. All right. This is an opportunity for you guys to voice your opinions on issues this morning and on candidates in the afternoon, okay? It is your chance to do something you don't really get a chance to do on a day-to-day basis. First off, politicians don't care what you think. You're not going to vote yet, or if you are old enough to vote, many of you aren't registered. So nobody really listens to you guys. This is your chance today to speak and have people listen to you. All right? Really hard to follow. Okay, so if you sit down and think about where does the power lie, think about age groups, all right? You guys are in Generation Z. I am a baby boomer, okay? The silent generation is kind of almost gone. My generation is getting older, retiring, and dying. The millennials and Generation Z are going to be the ones that control this country in the near future. So it's time for you guys to start thinking about, what your role is going to be. And again, look at the breakdown of populations. You are 20% of the voting bloc in this country. You are going to be the biggest voting bloc in this country. So it's your chance to start thinking about what's your role, what can you do, how can you have your opinion heard, and what can you do to impact this country? So when we talk about an independent party platform, there is a new group called No Labels. Literally means we don't want to be labeled D or R. We're a group of moderates who are looking for a better option in terms of, how this country can be run. So the No Labels Party is looking to put forth what they call a unity ticket, all right? Giving Americans a choice to vote for a presidential ticket that features strong, effective, honest leaders who will commit to working closely with both parties to find common sense solutions to problems. And that's what we're hoping you guys can show us the way today. All right, this is some of the slogans of the No Labels Party. Be brave, think outside the box. All right, okay. So that's just a little bit of an intro as to why we're not doing Democrat, Republican, why we're doing an independent campaign. So now in a convention, the next step that happens is that the delegates to the convention will vote on and approve the party's leadership for the next 4 years. So we've kind of simulated that the leadership is already selected. They were chosen by myself and some of my colleagues from among the leaders of your junior and senior class. So at this point, we're going to ask you to give a voice vote in a second on approving your leadership team, and you can see them up there. The three co-chairs for this convention are Kriya Shah, Tarun Iyengar, and MJ Tarek. And then we have their leadership team, Zach Arnold, Dylan Walsh, Haley Switer, and Will Bernal. All right, so at this point, we're going to simulate how we vote today. One way that political party groups can vote is by a voice vote. So all in favor of approving this leadership team, say aye. Aye. Let's try that again. All in favor? Aye. The only one I'm hearing is him. The ayes have it. All right, we're not going to do this like it's a real thing. This is your leadership team. How about a round of applause for them? They've been working on this since October. And now I will turn the podium over to Kriya Shah, one of your co-chairs. At this point, I would like the campaign managers in the back green section along with Secret Service agents.
Take those exhales. Good morning, North Penn. My name is Kriya Shah, and on behalf of the leadership team, it is my honor to welcome you to the 2024 Mock Presidential Convention. In today's simulated nominating process, we hope you come out of it understanding our political system just a little bit better. Today, we'll be diverging from the norm in that instead of simulating a typical Democratic or Republican convention, we'll be going third party. The No Labels Party is a legitimate movement seeking to minimize party polarization and encourage independent critical thinking about the issues that face our world. By going third party, the sky is the limit. You decide what direction to steer our party in. Your voices determine our democracy. But we have to remember that this is true in real life as well. It is easy to look at our government and think, they don't really represent me. The decisions they're making won't affect me. They don't even know me. And if that's true, then demand that they know you. If you're frustrated with the state of our government, then do something about it. We're at a critical crossroads right now, at the time where the state of our democracy, both at home and abroad, is being challenged. We're the United States of America. We've been a global unipolar superpower since our inception. We take things into our own hands and we get the job done. How can we have faith in our political systems if we don't participate in them ourselves? There are so many ways to participate in the decisions that our government makes, regardless of what age you are. A repost on your story to raise awareness, donate to support important causes, volunteer your time to campaigns of candidates that are passionate about the issues you care about. And if you're 18, the easiest way to decide your future is by casting your ballot. In fact, we've got a referendum for our high school coming up just next week. And yes, we won't be here to reap the benefits of that renovation, but our siblings will be here among thousands of future North Penn students, and it'll be your family paying these tax increases. I encourage you to go out January 16th, assess your choices, make an informed decision, and cast your ballot. There's a phrase I've been hearing every 4 years whenever it's time for a presidential election, more and more often. I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. People are disappointed in their options, and who can blame them? Between government shutdowns, debt ceiling crises, Robert Menendez's corruption, and cultural icon George Santos, who was only honest about one thing in his career, the fact that he can rap Nicki Minaj's verse in Monster. Our government has been a little bit dysfunctional. But this is the time when we need to reach across the aisle and open dialogues about the issues that we're passionate about. And we need to be empathetic towards others' views. Justices Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg were on opposite sides of nearly 30% of Supreme Court cases, but they had a beautiful, close friendship apart from politics, while maintaining so much respect for each other and each other's careers. I know it can be hard to talk to people who don't believe a word of what you're saying, but if we can't have difficult conversations without descending into derogatory comments, that's where progress stops. The American identity is something that's been challenged recently. What makes someone an American? I don't think it has much to do with your DNA. As Trump once said, they tested my DNA and they said it wasn't DNA, it was USA. Disclaimer, Trump didn't actually say that. People photoshopped it, which goes to show how polarized our general population has become. But it's kind kind of a cold line. In all seriousness, I think being American comes down to your fundamental values. Do you believe in civil liberties? In political freedoms? Do you believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? The notion of the American dream, the rags to riches, that anyone can get anywhere by working hard enough, has been challenged because it doesn't address the institutional barriers preventing people from finding success. I think it's time to create a new American dream. In this new American dream, I hope our generation will realize how vital politics is to our day-to-day lives, and that we will make sure our voices are heard. I hope that we are able to hold respect and empathy for each other while making progress and ensuring representation for all. I hope that we will be mature enough to make this dysfunction disappear. The new American dream is peace. And this dream can be a reality, but that reality is in our hands. So what are you going to do about it? That is my challenge to you.
Well, thank you for that. We just heard a thought-provoking speech from Kriya Shah, followed by some moments from Brian Haley. So we are going to pass it down to Owen Carlin, who has the mayor of North Penn, Mr. Hassler. Owen?
Thank you very much, Anna. Indeed, here I have Mr. Hassler here, Mr. Kyle Hassler, mayor of the day at North Penn. How are you doing, Mr. Hassler?
Morning, Owen. I'm doing great today.
Great. Let's get right into the interview stuff, shall we? All right. So what exactly makes this mock election so incredibly impactful and unique here at North Penn?
So I really haven't heard of anything like this happening at other high schools. So as my second year as principal, when I heard that we were going to turn over basically an entire day to the students, a third of the school in the auditorium kind of roaming free, I was a little bit worried, but as we got to it, it's just amazing to see how they've brought everything together. And it's so important because our students are learning about the democratic process, and they're learning about compromise, and they're learning how to express their ideas and their thoughts and their wants respectfully and civilly. So it's really just great to see. I'm excited to get this interview over with and get back down to the floor so I can watch some of it. It's going to be a great day here at North Penn.
Well, I promise not to keep you too long. Just a few more questions here. Do you got anything that makes this, my apologies. Do you got anything that makes this year particularly unique? Any standout features here?
So again, being my first one, I'm kind of new to it, but I think one of the standout features is the no label party. So when Mr. Haley came to me in the beginning of the year to talk about this, there was concern because of the political climate and some of just the way really that politicians were handling themselves when they were talking and trying to work bipartisanly. So it's unique that we went with a no label party and a no label convention, but I think it serves as an example for how people should work together and our government officials should work together to do what's best for the country.
Gotcha. And anything you particularly are looking forward to yourself?
I'm just looking forward to get to see it. I mean, to be a part of this, to be able to give an opening statement and then to be interviewed by you and really just to see the amazing things that our students are doing here with the full coverage and the convention. It's breathtaking. It's amazing that the students are putting this on, and I just can't wait to see the entire thing.
Truly. It is absolutely an incredible opportunity that we got here. I think that just about wraps up this interview. I'll be sending it back to Anna Weatherwax there at the desk.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks, Mr. Hassler. Before we go down to the floor, I want to give a quick shout out to the choral ensemble from North Penn for their wonderful performance of the national anthem, and to North Penn's JROTC for their presentation of the colors. So while the delegates are on break, let's throw it down to Liz Chung and Alex Gopel to see what it's down like there.
Well, Anna, the energy is very, very high here. And everyone is very in high energy. There's good vibes going on. As you know, we just heard a beautiful speech from Kriya Shah that was, and right before we heard a speech from Mr. Haley and Mr. Hassler. So everyone seems to be in a very high mood. So it's doing good.
Well, that's just excellent. So I was hearing a lot down here in the interview about the No Labels Party. So what can you tell me about that? What are your thoughts?
I like the idea of the No Labels Party. I think it could help foster unity in our currently divided nation. Currently, as Mr. Haley said, opinions
inter-party relations are terrible right now. I think that's fair if I say that. So I think it's nice someone is out there fostering sanity.
Yeah, I'd agree. I really like the idea of coming together, unity, and I mean, that's what North Penn is all about, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So, what are your highlights? What are you looking forward to for the morning session?
I'm looking forward to the debates personally. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting things going on there. Lots of ideas thrown around.
I don't disagree. So, Kriya Shah, she was our junior and sophomore class president. She made a wonderful speech. Is there any analysis you guys want to provide to that? Extra thoughts?
Oh, well, I think the line about Donald Trump, it really opened the perspective to how things can really be taken out of context and twisted around to make other people look bad. But I think that her speech, it evoked a lot of thoughts within a lot of people, and I think that's a part of this open convention because nobody's really confined to being a Democrat or a Republican, so I think every individual will be able to express their own political opinions, and I think that's really wonderful.
You know, I'd agree. And, you know, it's something to say that when she delivered that line and told me it was from our former president, I did not doubt her for a moment. But, like she said, we'll credit that line to Mr. Will Bernal, the resident comedian of North Penn. So, is it looking like everyone's getting seated, or are we still moving about down there?
They appear to be trickling in. I give it another minute or two.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts?
I'm just excited to see what they do.
Good to hear it. So is there anything else we should be looking out for in our morning session? What do we have coming up after this?
We got Tarun Iyengar with the presentation and discussion of platform and vote rules discussion. I imagine that's the debates.
Well, while we're still waiting, let's throw it over to Owen Carlin to hear his thoughts on our first part of the morning session. Owen?
Gotta say, I feel like this is going remarkably well so far. Feeling pretty all right myself. You know, great to talk with Mr. Kyle Hassler, the mayor here at North Penn for the day. Very excited to take a look at some of the candidates and their own opinions on stuff. Great speech from Kriya Shah. Very inspiring, very evocative. Gets you thinking about the very nature of our country here, you know? We gotta think. It's our duty.
Absolutely. All right, well, it looks like we are just about ready, so we are gonna get ready to throw it down to the floor, and we will see you next time.
Your seats, that would be much appreciated.
Do this. No, I'm all right. I'm all right because I'm not going to be up here long. Sean Techlin's hiding in the back. Let's grab a seat, folks. What I need? I needed my gavel. I forgot the gavel. seats, please. Be quiet. All right, a little bit of procedure before we get into the platform. This platform section is where you get to talk. All right? If you need to go to the bathroom during the course of the day, there's a table over to the right, to my right, your left. There is a QR code. You use your 5-star app, you use the QR code, you go to the bathroom, you come back. All right, if you need to go somewhere else, you have a guidance counselor appointment, something like that, again, table, there's a sign out procedure over there. You sign out, you do what you got to do, you come back. Okay? So now we get into the interesting part. This is the part that is important to teachers. It's where the students get to talk about issues. Students get to give their opinions about problems facing this country and what they think we need to do about it. So I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, Tarun Iyengar.
You guys are too kind. All right, good morning, delegates. My name is Tarun Iyengar, and I'm honored to be one of your co-chairs here for our 2024 mock convention. I first want to express my deepest gratitude to my co-chairs, Korea and MJ, and the rest of our leadership team, Haley, Dylan, Will, and Zach, for being awesome friends and passionate leaders for this convention. I also want to thank Mr. Haley for putting this all together and seeing this through start to finish. He's really keeping this unique North Penn tradition alive. I also want to thank all the teachers who brought their classes down today, Mr. Mostert, Mr. Monero, Mr. Knob, Mr. Maurer, Mr. Evans, Mr. Homan, and Mr. Henry. And we also want to thank the facilities team, tech, and media crews that really make this convention feel like the real deal. And lastly, I want to thank all you guys for showing up today and participating, because this is a really awesome, unique experience to get involved with democracy and see how political parties work. So our mock convention today will give you a unique insight into how political parties function as linkage institutions in our American democracy. Simply put, linkage institutions are things in our democracy that connect the people to our democratic experience in America. And the Constitution does not require that we have these linkage institutions, but our life would be totally different if we didn't have political parties. Now, political parties, they act as linkage institutions by getting out the vote, training potential candidates, and organizing our politics at all 3 levels of government. Conventions like the one we are at today are just another example of them acting as linkage institutions. So every 4 years, a political party has several important duties to perform at these conventions. First, they'll nominate a presidential and vice presidential candidate for the party. They'll adopt party rules for the next 4 years. They'll appoint a national party chairperson and leadership team for the next 4 years, and they'll produce a platform which is the party's written stance on the issues, and that's what voters can use to make decisions. Today, we will start by producing a platform for our No Labels party. So that's going to be the next thing we do, and then later in the afternoon, we're going to get to the nominating part. So our leadership team today has put together the following 10 topics for our platform discussion. We decided to talk about student debt because paying for college is on all our minds right now, and it is scholarship season after all. We want to talk about minimum wage because every state has a different standard. We want to address climate change because our planet's future is uncertain, and our policy choices can be the difference between sustainability and disaster. We wanted to talk about the Russia and Ukraine crisis because this conflict is deeply tied into our economy and the defense of democracy. We wanted to cover the right to privacy and abortion because we are in the wake of the overturning of Roe v. Wade and recent ballot provisions in 2023 elections that we really want to hear from the student body to see what they have to say about abortion and the right to privacy. We also want to cover immigration because it's a whole set of issues that extend from our southern border right into our community. We want to also touch the crisis in the Middle East because this issue has complex and deep ramifications, and we want to hear again from the student body to see what they have to say. We want to talk about healthcare because the battle over universal healthcare still persists today. We wanted to cover drug policy because from marijuana legalization to the opioid crisis, drug policy holds a serious grasp over the future of our nation. And lastly, we wanted to cover electoral issues because election logistics have changed ever since the pandemic, and our election access and security and integrity are all issues that need to be sorted out. In our convention simulation, we're going to be allowing the student delegates, you guys, to speak on these 10 issues. And we want you to speak your mind freely about these issues in our country. You are encouraged to propose solutions for these problems during the speaking time at the convention. In the interest of allowing as many students as possible to speak and covering as many of these 10 topics as we can, we will limit the total speaking time on each topic to 10 minutes. So each person should keep their comments to about a minute, 30 seconds. If you keep it within that range, we can hopefully cover all these 10 topics and everyone who wants to speak will get a chance to speak. So that means be concise and clear as well. We have 4 microphones set up around the auditorium, so microphones 1 and 2 are up front, and then microphones 3 and 4 in the back. And so you can line up at those microphones when you're ready to make a comment. So a member of our leadership team is going to introduce each topic. So for instance, I'll introduce our first topic, student debt, and I'll read a little intro, and then from there you can line up at the 4 microphones, and we'll call on, say, microphone 1, and then the microphone will be on, and you can start speaking. And at the end of 10 minutes, if we would like to extend the speaking time by 5 minutes for the topic, we just need a motion from any delegate in the crowd. And it'd be similar to the voice vote we did earlier. But one of the most important things for the platform discussion is respect. And that's our guiding principle for debating and discussion. You know, as Taylor Swift says, we don't need to share the same opinions as others, but we do need to be respectful. And that's something I can get behind. You must be able to accept the fact that not every one of your peers here will have the same viewpoint and perspective as you. Listen and consider all sides of the issue and think about the best path forward to deal with them. Let's do what North Penn does best and embrace our diversity of thought. So we want everyone to be comfortable expressing their opinions in regards to the party platform. So let's get started with discussing student debt. So the cost of college in America is a major issue facing young people and families in the 21st century. Over 43 million Americans held over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt, and that number has grown in the past 3 years. College is necessary for careers in many fields, with the major exception being the trades, and it is very costly. In addition, excessive college loan debt cannot easily be dealt with through bankruptcy proceedings. President Biden's plan for student loan forgiveness appeared promising to many young Americans with debt, but it was struck down by the Supreme Court in June of 2023 under the reasoning that the Department of Education does not have the power to cancel the debt. This begs the question, what role should the federal government have when it comes to student debt? Would relieving this debt help the economy or increase the abuse of loan forgiveness? Are the hundreds of billions of dollars required to support these programs really worth it? So if you guys want to start lining up at microphones and we can begin our discussion on student debt. Any comments are welcome. Okay, if we can start with microphone number 1, please.
So I believe that school is very expensive, and I remember having a middle school teacher, I believe he was a history teacher, he was saying that he was still in like thousands of student loan debt from college, and it's just way too expensive, and there should be ways to be able to cut back, and not as many people are getting the education that they deserve to get.
Great, thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
I would like to add on that in a more general sense of the economy, that the new jobs that colleges can create people will be better able to follow those jobs and contribute to the economy if they are not saddled by student debt and they have the opportunity to invest their money.
Thank you. Microphone number 1, please.
We can point like half of those reasons up to political corruption. Like why, when, in the 90s, was college so affordable? The government should not have a role per se, but if it wants to, it can make policies to make it easier for, whoa, man, this is horrifying. All right, the government shouldn't be able to cancel the debt, but it should be able to make policies to control the schools a little bit. At least make like price policies. Hey, you can't tax someone $100 grand, or you can't put someone 100 grand in debt. Jesus, I'm bad at this. All right.
Thank you. Guys, we got plenty of more time for discussion and debate. 4 microphones open. I'll ask this question. Maybe some of you guys want to answer it. And I think this goes to what our last speaker was saying, with the role of the federal government in college debt. Should government make some level of college free, or is that like a step too far? And should people still have to work and pay for college? Any takers? Come on, there's got to be someone. Oh, thank you. Oh, microphone 1, please. Microphone 1.
Yeah, I just think in the case of I don't think that it should be like free whatever for everybody, because I do think that the economy does need the money that they get from that to some extent. However, I think there should be an extension on helping with people who are less privileged and can't afford things as much, because if you look back in history, when things like the GI Bill passed, there was that cheaper and there was more people able to get into colleges, which as a whole led to one of the most economically successful periods of American history. And I think if there was more expansion on that helping people that can't afford colleges get into colleges, there would be a rise in people able to get jobs, and there would be more growth for the country.
All right, thank you. Okay, microphone number 2, please.
Now, I think it's unreasonable to ask for many families, especially if you're going to a university, a prestigious university outside of the state, for $60,000 a year, $240,000 for your whole college career. I mean, most families, even people who are upper middle class, can't afford that, can't put in that money. And the fact that we have to rely on private institutions for scholarship money and not the government, I think it's unreasonable. And it's not impossible. You see the United Kingdom have some of the most prestigious universities, only $30,000 a year. It's definitely possible, and their economy is still very powerful too.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Honestly, I just feel like schools being so expensive is just so discouraging to students. There's so many friends that I've had that have had dream schools, but they genuinely just don't apply because they know that they can't afford it. And I feel like even with Ivies and like schools that are considered prestigious, I just believe that education is education, and just because you're a prestigious school, you're not like above anyone else. And I think there should be limits to how much an education should cost, because I think like America is all about like making it, but like how can you make it if the way that you're raised and set up is not like financially you're not able to reach your dreams and go to like a school that could help you with that. So that's just my opinion on it.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
The price of American education has continued to rise across several decades, and yet the quality of American education has not followed that rise. Compared to other developed nations, the cost is ridiculously high, and yet the quality of education lags far, far behind. Meanwhile, the American military budget rises $800 billion and still rising exponentially, and yet there is no equal increase in funding in education. Quality lacks, the funding is low, and the cost just continues to rise further and further.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Countries have like free colleges or just like a lower cost. I don't think our colleges should be free, but like lower the cost, maybe like get rid of like textbook fees and everything. And if you want a good job, most jobs are requiring an MBA or like some type of high degree, but people can't afford to pay for college.
Thank you. We have 4 minutes left. Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any more comments on student debt? It can be on stuff was covered originally. If you want to pose questions that the candidates might address later in their nominating speeches, you guys are free to come up and ask those questions as well. Microphone number 2, please.
Hello, North Bend. Thank you for providing this opportunity for students to come out and speak about these issues. I have a question for the candidates later on in this debate. What does it mean to be educated? Does having a college education from a prestigious university genuinely mean that you're better off than a student who goes off to a trade school? You know, like, I think that this is something that we have to address as a nation. Like, going to a prestigious university should not be the only path to financial stability and to academic fulfillment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to wrap up the student debt discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful co-chair, MJ, to talk about a minimum wage.
All right. Good morning, delegates. One of the platform issues we'll be discussing today is minimum wage. This long-standing debate in America revolves around an appropriate baseline income for workers. Advocates argue that the federal minimum wage of $7.25 should be raised to tend to income equality issues, lift workers out of poverty, and stimulate economic growth. Opponents express concerns about potential job loss for small businesses, and that with an increase in the minimum wage, the cost of living would simply increase proportionally, rendering no change. Through the graphics above, we can see that all age groups are in favor of raising the minimum wage, and that this will largely affect an adult demographic rather than just a teenager. That being said, I would like to hear what you guys have to say about that. So you can line up like mics 1, 2, 3, and 4, and let us know what you think about minimum wage. Don't be afraid. All right, microphone 2, please.
So if you look at how federal minimum wage has kind of affected the average worker, you have to first look at how much CEOs and company executives have had their wages increased over the past few years, which has been over 1,000%, while the average worker has been around 15.6%. But they're still saying that if they end up giving a small percentage of that to raise minimum wage, it would cause even more problems. But they really just don't want to end up giving up those extra profits.
Totally. Thank you. Microphone 1.
I think it just makes sense to raise the minimum wage as the cost of living in general has risen over time, and since the last time minimum wage was raised, it's been over a decade, and obviously home prices, prices of goods, car prices, all of that has raised, and yet most states still have a minimum wage of $7.50, so I think it should be at least raised to something like $12, $15.
Totally, yeah, thank you. All right, back to microphone 2.
I think as inflation increases, the federal minimum wage should increase, and it shouldn't be on the state to increase the minimum wage. In California, you see that the minimum wage is $16 an hour because the cost of living is so much higher than compared to Pennsylvania. But as the cost of living in Pennsylvania increases, the fact that our minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour, it becomes unreasonable to pay taxes and mortgage. Totally. So I think we should increase the federal minimum wage.
Okay, thank you. All right, microphone 1.
The original concept for minimum wage was the idea that it should be able to support a person and their family, and they should be able to have one income. But that is no longer possible on the current minimum wage, as with the way that the cost of living has continued to rise.
Thank you. All right, microphone 2.
Not only has inflation and the cost of living rose, increasingly, but worker productivity has gone up like several times, several-fold in the past couple decades. it's gone up upwards of 200, 300, 400% depending on what field you talk about. And yet the average income and the minimum wage has not followed suit. The increase in productivity has not seen a similar increase in wage. And additionally, corporate profit rates continue to rise while the minimum wage stays the exact same. It should be at least $15, if not more.
Totally. Thank you. All right, back to microphone 1.
To add on to what's been said, you see Americans now working multiple jobs, not just one job, in order to stay afloat. And my question is do we want the American dream to be someone working themselves to death in order to have like the vague dream of like retirement in the future, or like do we want like happiness as a country? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to microphone 2.
I believe that the minimum wage should be increased on a nationwide level, with states having the opportunity to raise it proportional to their states' like particular cost of living. And I believe that a lot of the issues proposed of job loss due to automation and inflation, they've been overblown, as especially in the past few years we've seen that those things have happened in spite of there being no increases to the minimum wage on a federal level.
Thank you. All right, microphone 1.
Here's the problem with raising minimum wage, everybody. So in this town, we have a lot of small businesses, right? Those businesses, they don't bring in that much money, so they have to pay their employees minimum wage. What happens is if we raise the minimum wage, sometimes employees will lose their jobs because employers can't pay wages. And if we take like local fast food restaurants, sure, like they bring in some money, but they can't compete with like say McDonald's, who brings in enough money to raise the minimum wage for all their employers. So that means that mom and pop local shops, they're gonna run out of business because they can't pay their employees enough to meet federal minimum wage requirements.
Totally. Thank you. All right, back to microphone 2.
I believe that raising minimum wage could be a solution to like solving a lot of economic problems in our society. But as we see in California, even though the minimum wage has been raised to $16, $15, the price of living has gotten so high because of that minimum wage raise that minimum wage shouldn't be our solution to fixing people's economy lifestyles, but something else should be changed instead.
Thank you. All right, back to microphone 1.
So I worked a job that was a couple dollars above minimum wage. Based on the paychecks, I would not have been able to afford rent or anything that was a basic necessity in life with that pay. Like, it would have been practically impossible, and there's people who get paid less than I did. So I believe that it should be raised a lot more than $7.50.
Thank you. All right, just a warning, we have about 3 more minutes for comment. All right, microphone 2.
When you take it in from the national perspective, it's going up. People are making more money. It's just spread unevenly to CEOs, corporations, to hire the elite. So I think that increase in the minimum wage should allow us to share this increase in profits more evenly across the nation.
Thank you. All right, microphone 1.
I think in increasing the minimum wage, you have to take into account a lot of things, and these things have already been stated, so it's more of a restating. But how much is the cost of living per state? Because the cost of living in California is a lot higher than the cost of living in like Pennsylvania even. And so I think that the state should have the right to increase the minimum wage as they see fit. And also, raising the minimum wage federally could potentially be harmful to small businesses who don't take in as much income as large corporations. So, like, possibly having a minimum wage suggestion rather than a law would probably be more helpful.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we have time for 2 more comments, and then we got to wrap it up. All right, microphone 2.
I believe that the economic crisis and the minimum wage is quite depicted in today's world, so I think that a higher minimum wage would be better.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I'm sorry, but final comment, microphone 1.
I worked minimum wage for a year and a half. And granted, I only worked the weekends, but I made roughly like $2,000, and that's not going to pull anyone over the poverty line. So I believe that it should be raised.
Okay, thank you. That's about it from oh, we can do it, yeah, microphone 2.
I think that in terms of the economy, increasing the minimum wage is a great thing for the short term, but in the long term, I think we need to look at other ways, other solutions to fix this national crisis. I mean, in terms of the housing industry, we're seeing an increase in interest rates and not an increase in wages in general. So people are not being able to get out loans for homes or even own homes in retrospective to the long-term economy. So I think we should really confront the housing crisis at this time.
Thank you. All right, that is it for minimum wage. Next up is climate change with Dylan Walsh.
The issue of climate change is one of the biggest, not just on the American political stage, but on the global stage. As the use of modern technology and fossil fuel has led to increased emissions of greenhouse gases, leading to the trapping of heat in our atmosphere, which has led to a general rise in global temperatures, we've seen the beginnings of tremendous environmental effects that will only continue to exacerbate over time. The melting of glaciers, the changing of weather patterns, the extinction of species, etc. The argument over climate change is mainly about how we should address it. Is it best that the government take a heavy hand and directly intervene and promote low-emission policies, or is it better to let the free market do its work and prevent the government from overstepping on people's freedoms, personal and economic? And how do we address the cost that climate change will inevitably have on future generations? Climate change is a dynamic issue with a lot of moving parts involving constantly changing and evolving science. And I want you to consider this as you answer the question and speak on climate change. Any takers? Yeah, thank you. Let's start at microphone number 1.
I think that the government needs to have a big role in fighting climate change. I think we need to do more to promote green energy, such as solar and wind and hydroelectric. And I think that we need to promote it internationally. We need to be an example to everyone in terms of dealing with climate change, because while we can change stuff, we need to actually lead and inspire other countries to also help as well.
Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
I think that the government should definitely play a more direct role in climate change and limiting the greenhouse gases that are put out by mega corporations and oil fracking. So the way I see it is that mega corporations will push stuff like this product's 100% recycled, or you should use paper straws to save the turtles. And they're using that so they're able to continue, I guess, polluting more. So it looks like you're doing something, but really it's just allowing them to get away with more stuff. So I think the government should put a limit on the amount of oil fracking, the amount of greenhouse gases that they're able to put out. And also subsidize renewable energy. It's not really that crazy. So many countries already do it. Windmills in the Netherlands, hydroelectric dams, geothermal power plants, nuclear power. It's really not that bad, guys. You're not going to get cancer. It's really not that crazy. That's it.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
So, I've been saying this for years. I I'm not going to live as long as my parents, specifically because of climate change. Like, things are happening at such an alarming rate that all the countries, not just America, not just North America, all the countries need to work together to figure out a solution to this problem, and that doesn't seem to be happening. In fact, the opposite has been happening.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
As a steadfast advocate for climate change, I draw inspiration from American leaders like Governor Jay Inslee of Washington. His groundbreaking initiatives include a 100% commitment to clean energy by 2045, investing in electric vehicle infrastructure, and championing green job creation. Despite skeptics questioning the economic feasibility of clean energy, Inslee's success demonstrates that embracing sustainability can drive economic growth. By leveraging innovative policies and fostering collaboration, we can not only replicate but exceed these achievements on a national scale. Every counter-argument against the cost of change fades when we envision a thriving, carbon-neutral America, where every decision echoes our commitment to safeguarding our homeland for generations to come. God bless America.
Thank you. God bless America. Thank you. Microphone number 1.
So I see 2 options: suicide or the sad truth. I don't want the government to be involved in anything, but humans are inherently greedy. So they have to be, or else we're just going to be dead by 2100.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Okay, I would like to speak that unlike the first 2 issues we have discussed here, climate change is truly a global issue, and America is the top contributor to that global issue. So if we do not act, if we specifically, America, does not act, then the entire world will suffer for our selfishness.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
So around the world, we're kind of seeing the demolition of a lot of nuclear power plants in countries like Germany. And I think the U.S. should really prevent this because nuclear power is really clean, and I think we should not only do that, but subsidize the production of new plants.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
So the government should definitely intervene because the free market is not naturally going to go against climate change. Though the problem is that America depends heavily on oil. I mean, to get anywhere, you need a car. There's no way they can just cut down on gas or tell companies, no, sorry, you can't use more oil because this is capitalism. So, and this can either be addressed by switching more to nuclear power or pouring more money into research against climate change instead of trying to implement policies that generally will be went against in America because they are necessary for society to function.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
I think that the government should be more involved in climate change because most corporations don't really care that much and they're just out for money. And I also don't think it's fair because most corporations are run by older generations. So it's really us and Gen Alpha that it's going to suffer the most. And I think that the government needs to look at it in more of a future standpoint as in a right now standpoint, because if we don't take any action towards climate change, then we're not going to get anywhere in the future.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
I feel like in this society with our government, we always talk about climate change, but we never do much action. It's more of like a more talk, not do. And I feel like if we look at the past year, we look at how it finally snowed after 2 years, which seems irregular. And we also address the temperatures that have passed through the months. Everything has been shifting unstably. And so I feel like climate change is something really important we need to look in the future, or else, we might be in a desert wasteland at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, just a warning, we're on just about 3 minutes left in our time. Microphone number 1.
As a nation and as a people, we seriously need to consider the message we are sending ourselves and the world. It is our job and our duty to take care of the earth and take care of it as much as possible. Because we not only send a message to ourselves, we send a message to our children and future generations of people that live. As an aside, once we send a message, once we take action, the world will follow. Once the world follows, everything will change. Change is only possible when we, the people, start to ask, why us? Why must we be the ones to make the change? Once we ask ourselves, once we take action, change will occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
So I would just like to say that in about 10 years or so, if we don't do anything about climate change, we won't really be talking about much more of these topics because the ozone layer above the Earth is going to melt, and that's going to result in colossally high temperatures. What I would propose is that all major companies who have global emissions right now should all bond together and pledge to be carbon neutral by a certain date. And as many companies have already said, around 2045, I just feel like that's just too late, and I would push for a more closer timeline, like 2035. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we got time for 1 or 2 more speakers here. So microphone number 1.
I just want to say, every year I see like a new article about how this summer has been hotter than the last one, and we just keep breaking our own records. And I think we really need to have stricter rules and regulations on big companies and billionaires. Like Taylor Swift produces more carbon emissions in 3 months to see Travis Kelce play in the NFL than one person does in their entire lifetime. And I just really think it's mostly the corporations and billionaires who need to be checked.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
So the realities of climate change is it's much more than temperatures rising. It's the melting ice, the rising water levels that put the coast at risk. And the things that are doing that, it's not you leaving your light on for an hour extra when you leave the house. It's big companies. So putting the consumer in charge of fighting this climate change has not been working, and it takes for federal laws to combat the levels that we are seeing. And if I could leave a message with everyone, for those of you who are juniors or sophomores, this North Penn world, we offer environmental science classes, and they're very insightful on information about climate change.
Thank you. All right, we're going to have 1 more speaker. Microphone number 1.
Okay, so climate change, it's affecting our entire world as we know it. I know a lot of people don't know much about light pollution, but light pollution is a big part in climate change. Leaving your light on can affect all the emissions, the carbon emissions that are used up. Not just us leaving our lights on, but big companies and just street lights. The only thing that we've found are just suggestions on how to help it. There's nobody actually putting any effort into changing. So climate change something needs to be done. So.
Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. Moving on, we have topic number 4, Russia-Ukraine with Haley.
So in February of 2022, Russia's invasion of Ukraine escalated tensions that had been building since 2014. Nearly 2 years later, the military conflict is still ongoing as Ukraine has recaptured about 54% of occupied territory, but Russia still occupies about 20% of the country. Although front lines have remained relatively stable, the number of military casualties has continued to climb, passing over 500,000 people. Under the Biden administration, the U.S. has firmly stood with Ukraine, donating $77 billion to the country between January of 2022 and October of 2023. While many Democrats believe that the U.S. is not providing enough assistance or is providing just the right amount, many Republicans believe that the U.S. is providing too much aid at this point. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian refugee crisis has continued to build, with more than 6.2 million refugees recorded globally in July of 2023. The United States has provided tens of billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine, on top of accepting close to 3,000 refugees through its refugee program and making an estimated 60,000 Ukrainian migrants eligible for temporary protected status. However, the crisis has continued to grow with a much larger demand for humanitarian aid. Delegates, what role should the United States be playing in this conflict? Are we providing too much aid, too little? Additionally, how can the United States help alleviate the worldwide refugee crisis? What future ramifications may this conflict enable, including issues concerning cybersecurity, nuclear nonproliferation, global economic stability, and energy security? At this time, if you would like to speak, you may make your way to the microphones. If you have already spoken, we would love to hear new voices. So if you could just head to the end of the line so we could hear new voices first, that would be super great. Thank you. All right, let's take microphone 1.
I've been placed in the first position in the line for no good reason, but here we go. So I believe that America's providing way too much financial support to Ukraine in that we sent, as has been said, $77 billion and more, and it hasn't been going to any really productive use. And on top of that, Ukraine is simply being used as a proxy against Russia. And while I do not support Russia in any way, it's a corrupt regime in and of itself. And ideally, we'd have a better government there. The solution to Russia's regime is not supporting Ukraine in some sort of proxy war. All that does is throw Ukrainian men, women, and children to die in the battlefields and in the cities and whatnot. So end the war somehow, stop sending so much aid, and let there be some sort of compromise.
Thank you. Let's hear from Mike 2.
I think that while the war has been stagnating in recent months, I think we should still support Ukraine, as most of our aid that we have given to them has been in just weapons. And I think that if we stop supporting them and hypothetically have some kind of peace deal that will just lead in Ukraine losing more land, and as seen in 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea, do we even know if Russia will not try to invade again? Because they've done it before. And I think it's just logical to keep supporting them. I think we should also support the economy, because the economy has obviously been completely destroyed by this war, since they've had to put most things towards the war effort.
Thank you. All right, Mike 1.
All right, so there's other issues at home we have to worry about instead of sending money to random countries like Ukraine. We don't need to send $77 billion to a country we're not allied with, that is not our war, that we should not be worrying about. There are other issues at home, homelessness, poverty, all those other things that we need to focus on instead of just giving money away.
Thank you. And Mike 2.
I think that we should lower the amount of money that we're sending to Ukraine. I mean, obviously, it's good to help out somebody who's fighting against a enemy state, but I think we should solve the problems that we have at home first, rather than sending all this money to Ukraine. And I also think that the European Union should be part of help to Ukraine, since they're closer to where the war is happening right now. We're kind of just like an ocean away, so.
Thank you. And Mike 1.
I think it's time we stop being the world police and just kind of let things happen as they do. We need to fix our housing crisis. We need to fix the lobbying in the government. We need to fix our government in the first place before we start caring about other people across the ocean.
Thank you. Mike 2.
So I may be a little biased on this, but my family is Ukrainian, and I really think that if we weren't sending money to Ukraine, there would be another genocide. And the fact that it's not just about sending money to Ukraine, it's about protecting democracy everywhere in the world. It's kind of setting up an image of what we want. Because if we allow Russia to take over Ukraine, then it opens the doors for more people to take over in other countries. And yeah.
Thank you. And let's do mic 1.
I feel like the cause is good, donating to Ukraine and whatnot, but I feel like the $77 billion that we use can be used for every single person in this room, and we need to develop our own country and make our country better. God bless America.
And mic 2.
I respect the viewpoints of having to help out our nation at home. We're going through a lot of issues right now, like poverty, and we were just talking about student debt. But I think this comes down to a bigger issue. Do we believe in democracy across the world? Do we want to expand the democratic freedoms that we enjoy at home? Do we want to let an autocratic leader take over parts of Europe? I think that we're better than that. I think that we as Americans should be able to contribute abroad to make sure that we never experience another mass genocide again. Thank you.
And mic 1.
So we've seen the genocides and killings of Russia. Russia isn't going to stop. If we cease our assistance, what will that say to the Ukrainian citizens? And our strategic posture is we are very capable on supporting Ukraine. And if we cease this assistance, then what will Russia move on to next? Because we're showing them that we're not willing to fully commit and stand up against their tyranny. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic 2.
So I have heard a lot of discussion about the $77 billion we are sending to Ukraine and how it's too high, but consider that we as a nation have spent the most amount on our military than any other nation in the world, and I think that if we spend so much on our military, then shouldn't we use it on something?
Thank you. Mic 1.
The war in Ukraine has undoubtedly taken its toll on America, Europe, and the world. However, if we truly want peace, not just in Ukraine, but also around the world, we need to take action. And unfortunately, as much as sanctions help, they also delay the inevitable of the fact that we may or may not have peace. If we truly want peace, we need to be able to stand up to the aggressor, and we must say no. We must be willing to say no, and we must be willing to put our foot down, no matter the consequences. I believe that our strength should be used in a way that we intervene, not just for Ukraine, but also to help NATO in its fight, and to help the European Union help Ukraine to where it puts pressure on Russia and Putin, to where it allows Putin to see that he has no strength and that he is isolated in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic 2.
How you guys doing? I just want to say the money we're spending on Ukraine at this point, I think we're wasting our money and it should be spent internally. That's it.
Mic 1.
Ukrainians here, great country, but I think that we can use that money that we're sending to Ukraine for U.S. citizens here. I know abortion is a topic. There's tons of single mothers here that can use that money. Homelessness is high. Homeless people can use that money. In my opinion, I don't think America is supposed to police the world. What happens over there, we can send our respects, we can donate charity and stuff, but personally, I'm not going to die for Ukraine, just like I wouldn't die for Israel or any other of our allies that we send a bunch of money to. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Mic 2.
Personally, I believe the enemy combatants in Ukraine are sufficiently
derives from the goal of capturing Russia. So it's just, it's kind of just like a 50-50 at this point. I just think we should pull out at this point.
Thank you. Mic 1.
Personally, I believe that we are sending too much money than we can afford to the Ukraine. We're over $30 trillion in debt, and last year we spent over $6 trillion, and we're in a deficit. We're spending more money than we're gaining. And you take a look at the tragedy that happened in Hawaii, where a volcano just wiped out hundreds of houses, and the US government only sending $700 to survivors and peoples who lost their entire homes. And a lot of the money that we sent to the Ukraine could have been sent to the people who lost their homes in Hawaii. And so I just believe that the US government is caring more about foreign affairs than affairs that happen in its own country. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we have about 30 seconds left. Are there any motions for, are there any motions to extend our time by about 5 minutes? All those in favor? All right, that does pass, so we will extend by 5 minutes. At this time, we'll hear from Mic 2.
So like what the other people said about us policing like the world just caused us more problems, like especially with Russia and us sending like $77 billion to Ukraine, and just like it just causes more problems with inflation and all that. So I feel like we should just like let go of all that.
Thank you. And Mic 1.
I just wanted to say I hope we can all agree that the one thing America has always stood for is freedom. So if we have freedom, why shouldn't everyone else? We came from another country to get our own freedom. And if, God forbid, something like this were to happen to America, wouldn't we want the support of our allies in other countries?
Thank you.
Well, we're hearing a lot of interesting things down there on the floor. So while they're continuing their discussion, we're going to throw it down to Liz and Alex to get a quick recap of everything we've heard. Liz, Alex?
So far we've talked about college debt and minimum wage, climate change, and the Russia and Ukraine crisis. And we've heard many differing opinions, and all of them are equally enticing. Some examples of opinions that we've heard with what we've just talked about, Russia and Ukraine. Some people think that if we stop supporting them, we should instead put those $77 billion into fixing up our own country, while others think that it's less about spending money and more about protecting democracy and freedom. So I think that's really interesting. Alex?
I agree. And for climate change, we have people arguing that it's the argument of basically how much should the federal government intervene with climate change, because it is a very real threat. But should the free market economy handle it by itself, or does the government need to step in? I have my own opinions on the matter, but I'm not going to share them here. It's interesting hearing what everyone else has to say and the proposed solutions that they have.
Some interesting things going on down there. I know the crowd was a bit quiet while we were talking about the minimum wage, but that really started to wake them up, I saw it, especially before their first topic. A lot of quiet conversation, but the Ukraine debate has definitely gotten a bit heated. What do you guys think about that?
It has gotten very heated. I think, especially with some people who had personal connections to the whole crisis, I think it was really interesting to hear their perspective on top of people who they are very passionate about the military, and so we heard opinions from there, and I think it's really great that we get so many perspectives.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of people who argue arguments over whether the money should go to the Ukraine or to us. Like, do we continue policing the world, or do we solve our own issues? It's an interesting debate, to say the least.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think the other hot button issue that people were really focusing in on was climate change. I was happy to hear that. Everyone seemed to be in a fair agreement that we needed to focus in more, that it was an issue. I was happy to hear that. What do you guys think about that one?
I agree. We need to address it sooner rather than later, because if we don't, we're going to start to see some massive issues, I think.
That once America enacts change, the rest of the world will follow, and then the world will change. And I think that was a really powerful statement. I also heard somebody saying that we should subsidize nuclear power, which I thought was very interesting as well.
Yeah, I agree. I could be getting the name wrong, but I believe it was David Moon who made the powerful speech. Everyone really seemed to lock in on that one. I did think it was interesting. Nuclear energy seemed to be a common theme. What were you guys thinking about on that one?
You want my personal opinion?
Sure.
I personally agree with it. It's cleaner than natural gas. Due to the issue of nuclear waste, yes, but that can be dealt with, I believe. So I think it's good. It doesn't produce fossil fuels. I don't see why we can't have it.
Yeah, I would agree. It looks like they're getting ready to start the next topic up on the floor, so we're going to throw it down to them. Thanks, Liz and Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we take a brief 5-minute break in the middle of our platform discussion, we're going to do some voting on what we discussed with the past couple topics. So I'm going to start off with student debt. So this is, again, going to be a voice vote. I'm just going to give a question to the crowd, and I'll ask, like, those in favor say aye, those opposed say nay, and we'll see how everyone stands on the topic as a group, and that'll basically be our party's position for our platform. So for student debt, the question is, should the government, via congressional action, cancel all student debt under $20,000? So that question is similar to President Biden's student debt plan. So all those in favor of canceling the student debt, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Aye. The ayes have it. Okay, Dylan, do you have a question? Do you want to say? Yeah. When you're question, you can just go on.
All right. On the topic of minimum wage, are we in favor of increasing the federal minimum wage of $7.25 to a higher number? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. I think the ayes have it.
All right, so on global warming as part of our party platform, should the government take an active role in combating climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And all those opposed? The ayes have it.
And lastly, on the Russia and Ukraine crisis, should the United States continue funding Ukraine in this crisis? All those in favor? Aye. And those opposed? Nay. The nays have it. All right, at this time, we will take a brief 5-minute recess. Please be back around 9:20. Thank you.
Well, we're going to throw it back down to the floor for a quick recap of everything we've heard. Certainly has been interesting. Alex, Liz, what do you guys think?
All right, so student college debt, they voted in favor of canceling student debt. Minimum wage, is voted in favor of increasing it. Climate change, they agreed that the government should take a more active role in combating it, and they voted that we should decrease funding for the Russia-Ukraine crisis.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think for me personally, I found it a bit surprising for that last nay, but what were you guys expecting there?
I was surprised too, personally. I saw a lot of people I saw a lot of support for continuing to support Ukraine. I guess a lot of people who didn't speak had more reserved thoughts and had more you know what I mean. They wanted to remove themselves from the situation.
I also found it to be really interesting because I remember in 2021 and 2022 when Russia was at war with Ukraine, there was a lot of controversy surrounding that, and so many people were in favor of supporting Ukraine. So I just think it's interesting how times have changed and people's opinions have also changed along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a minute to throw it over to Owen, who has some thoughts on our recent reflections. Owen?
I gotta say, it's absolutely fascinating to see this all play out. You know, consistently, time after time, we see this slow sort of start. You know, people may be a little bit hesitant or nervous to come up and share their opinions on things. But consistently, time after time, after that first opinion comes out, we get a large, lively discussion. And it's just wonderful to see the democracy at work here. Even if, like, you know, opinions get divisive sometimes and can be, you know, real big battle occasionally, it's real great to see. Send it back.
Thanks, Owen. So we're going to send it back down to the floor. Alex, Liz, can you guys give us a quick brief on what we're going to be expecting for the next session?
All right, next up, we are going to be talking about abortion and privacy, immigration, the Middle East crisis, healthcare, drug policy, and democracy and electoral issues. I'm expecting, to be completely honest, I'm expecting a lot of interesting things to happen.
A lot of heated debate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure we can expect a lot of polarization on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go ahead and see, what are your predictions for this one?
My predictions. I'm thinking, that's a good question. I don't know. It could go either way, given the whole thing with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. I'm expecting high support for free healthcare, honestly, from what I can tell. And probably support for like immigration, like more typically liberal points of view from how it's typically associated, but that's just what I'm expecting. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. Given what happened with the Russia-Ukraine thing again, we don't know we really don't know what'll happen.
I would absolutely agree. I know there's definitely a lot of surprising voices that we're hearing. And, you know, Gen Z on the whole tends to sway a bit more liberal. But we'll see what happens. I'm especially interested in the Palestine-Israel-Middle East conflict because I know the country as a whole has tended to lean towards supporting Israel, but our generation has tended to support more Palestine. So what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think that one's going to go?
You can take this one.
Well, I'm pretty impartial to the Middle East crisis because, as you know, we're doing the media, but I do think there will be lots of support for Palestine, a little bit more controversy for those who support Israel, especially because the conflict is just so severe right now.
I would agree. We're going to throw it over to Owen for a minute, just get his predictions. Owen?
So I'm going to be honest, Anna, I got one thing on my mind right now, and that is the hot button topic of abortion. And obviously, it's a very, very volatile subject with many different moving parts to it. A lot of them are religious and moral, but I got a hot feeling that realistically, people are probably going to be swinging more pro-choice here, just due to A, the location that we're in, North Penn being a little bit more inclusive of an area as a whole, and B, because, I don't know, it feels like, again, with the sort of religious and moralistic rootings of pro-life, not as many people are going to be quite as on board with that due to how volatile something like morals are.
Yeah, I would agree, Owen. Liz, let's throw it down to you. What are you thinking about when it comes to the abortion topic? How do you think we're going to sway on this? I did hear it come up once or twice with the minimum wage, I believe.
Yeah, so, I will pointed that out because I think it was really interesting how the minimum wage tied into abortion. But I think since Roe v. Wade was repealed in June of 2022, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of protesting in regards to whether women should have bodily autonomy and the right to govern their own bodies. So I think a lot of more liberal women or men will come up and express their beliefs on this topic.
But at the same time, I also think we're going to see a lot of conservative, more religious folk coming out and seeing it because I know in Christianity, I'm pretty sure it's considered immoral or it's considered, murder. So it'll be interesting to see the types of debates we're going to have. That's all.
I would agree. I'm excited to see the different groups that we're going to have because I know with Ukraine, Russia, that debate, we definitely had a more liberal-conservative divide on that one. But there's definitely a lot of ways the abortion case could go. I could definitely see male versus female divide. I could definitely see liberal versus conservative. There's many different ways that could go.
Yeah, I'm personally anticipating a religious versus atheistic or agnostic divide, definitely, because that's definitely a big part of it. I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason why Roe v. Wade was repealed. Correct? Right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be entirely incorrect on this.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'm excited to see where this one goes. We're going to throw it over to Owen real quick, who has Kriya Shah in the studio. Owen?
Thank you, Anna. Yes, here we are with Kriya Shah in the studio. Yeah, no, whatchamacallit, you're in charge of this whole ordeal here, you know, one of the biggest student leaders involved in it. So let's get right into it. You know, just tell us a little bit how the organization of this goes, some of your favorite parts of the program, and just why you're so invested in making this all happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So civics is a huge part of what I do here at North Penn. I'm invested in the mock trial and model UN clubs here. And I've also known Mr. Haley, who's been running this program for countless amounts of years through mock trial, and I have him in Gov as well. And he approached me at the end of last year, letting me know that he intended on putting on this convention this year, and if I'd be interested in doing it. And obviously, this is right up my alley. It's something that I really love to do. So I was invited to join this organization, along with countless others, like my entire leadership team. And from there, we started the entire planning process. So going third party was a really interesting thing, because usually it's always been Democratic or Republican. And because of this whole political polarization in our nation that we're seeing, we wanted to go third party. So it's just been an amazing experience working with these people and putting together this entire day of events for people to enjoy.
Yes, this truly is a spectacle, and I got to say that was a wise move going with the three-party structure and everything like that. All right, yeah, I'm going to be sending back to Anna now. Thank you for your time and your words.
Yep. Thank you, Owen. It looks like our delegates are supposed to be making their way back to their seats now, so we are going to throw it back down to the floor to get ready for our next topic, abortion and privacy by Haley Swider.
We are going to continue with our discussion on different topics. We're going to move on to abortion and the right to abortion and privacy. So if everybody could quiet down, I will give a brief intro, and then we will open back the microphones again. So abortion has been a hot-button policy issue since the early 1970s, but especially since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, effectively ending federal protections for access to abortions. A major issue regarding the judicial interpretation of the Constitution is if justices should interpret it as a living document, meaning that it's adaptable to apply to modern issues, or if justices should hold it strictly to its original intent. The constitutional argument for pro-choicers is that it is inherent in the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment that there is a fundamental right to privacy that protects a woman's choice to have an abortion. Pro-lifers argue that this is not the case because the original intent of the 14th Amendment was to provide equal protection for all, specifically after the Civil War. Note that although the pro-choice and pro-life movements make this issue seem black and white, it really is not. People can hold a variety of positions on this topic, on exceptions for rape or incest, on access to contraception, on the adoption system, on the support for single mothers, and much, much more. The questions I ask you all to consider and discuss as you make your way to the mics are you pro-life, believing that a fetus once conceived has a right to live? Are you pro-choice, believing that a woman has a right to make private medical decisions about her physical health without interference by others, specifically the government? Is there somewhere in between that you stand? Should abortion be completely banned, or should some exceptions allow a woman's choice? What should be done about access to contraception, and should abortion medication also be banned? At this time, we will start our 10-minute timer, and if you would like to speak, please make your way to the mics. If you have already spoken, I would encourage you to make your way to the backs of the line so that we can hear from those who have not. This is good. This is good. This is good. All right, if we go to all quiet down, we are going to take mic 1. Delegates, if we could all quiet down and give our respect to the person speaking at mic 1. Thank you.
It's been about a year and a half since Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and this has affected women across the country because about 24 states have either completely banned abortion or plan to do so in the near future. And many women live in so-called contraceptive deserts where there are no access to safe birth control methods or there are no health clinics. And plain and simple, women should have rights to their own bodies and their reproductive rights.
Thank you. Mike 2.
I don't even know where to begin with the topic of abortion. It's unfair in many perspectives and points of views. You have to be narrow-minded, very narrow-minded, to think of pro-life and pro-choice. When people have my body, my choice, and it's not up to men to decide to that. And what if women are put in a predicament where they have no yes or no to say what they want to do? It's not fair that people get to predict that, and if people need to be educated, the people are not educated at all. If you want to be serious, an embryo at 5 weeks, which you're allowed to get an abortion, is only the size of a sesame seed, and that's not even, the heart's not even developed, it's not even a real baby yet. So technically you're not really taking away a life, you know?
Thank you. And mic 1.
Much of the abortion debate centers around the question, does a fetus qualify as life? In truth, the answer does not matter, because the government should not have the right to force you to support another life. They can't make you donate organs even if you're the only viable person to help the other person live. Why should they make you do the same for a fetus?
Thank you. Mike 2.
I think without a doubt that I think it's really no question that people, like women specifically, should have the right to do abortion. And states like Texas, where it's like even if you're 16 and if you get sexually assaulted and you still have to keep the baby, I think that's disgusting. I think that should not be allowed. And you know, and the fact that like when going to like, you know, how other states, you know, as in Pennsylvania, we allow abortion, but like in a situation where you're in a state where it's not allowed, you know, it's the question of should you go through the risk idea of like traveling just to get an abortion, because abortion is not just for, you know, if you just don't want a child or can't financially handle a child, it's also for health reasons, because I know people who, if they get pregnant, they could have the high risk of death. So that's, yeah.
Thank you. Mike 1.
The government should not have control over my body. Abortion should be a private matter and stay a private matter. I should have the choice over my body, not my government.
Thank you. Mike 2.
Some mothers literally go into millions of dollars of debt and they can't do it by themselves because they don't have the money to support the child. So the child ends up getting left on the sidewalk where it literally can get trampled by anyone and taken. And some people get postpartum depression afterward, and even if they keep the child through, like, they're gonna hate that kid for their entire life, and that kid's gonna have a terrible life. They might as well not have one at all if they're gonna have a terrible life that they're gonna hate, and their parents are gonna go into millions of dollars of debt, and they're literally, or they're going to go into a terrible adoption system where they could be literally anywhere.
Thank you. Mike 1.
So unfortunately, rape is something that happens. It's disgusting, but it's the world we live in, and you can't avoid that. So when you look into that, you have to take into account, even though the debate is on the life of the unborn baby, you have to take into the account of the life of the mother, and it scars women like a lot, and it kind of messes up their mental state. And you can't make someone experiencing that take care of a baby, because there's just going to be resentment and lead to more abuse and more people in the system, which isn't sound enough to take care of that. And it's often an argument that there should be like restrictions so some people can get it, but like other people should have it banned. But 60% of rape is undocumented. You can't, 60% of women in that case will be forced to have a baby as a result of it.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you. Mike 2.
I don't personally believe that a bunch of white guys, or old rich white guys in suits sitting in a building should decide what women are able to do with their bodies, because personally it's not their bodies. It's not the old white guys' bodies. They should have no say over what a random lady who got assaulted in Texas should be able to do.
Thank you. I think it's done. We're going to move on to Mike 1 just for the sake of time. All right, thank you. All right, Mike 1.
Abortion has been something that women have fought for, and I don't think that the decision should be made by mostly men. I don't understand why a man should have a say on a woman's body when they don't experience having a child or the issues that come with it. In cases of rape and incest or medical complications, there should be no question whether abortion should be legal or not. I think that taking away the right to abortion is taking away freedom of choice, which is a clear violation of what America stands for. And if we take away abortion, we're opening doors for the government to take away more rights to people. And as a woman, I don't want to have to face more hardships in this country just because of my gender.
Thank you. Mike 2.
I think abortion should just stay legalized, because whether we like it or not, it's going to happen either way. And if it does happen, even if it is illegalized, it'll just be at a more unsafe rate. And I believe a lot of the people who want it to be illegalized, they're doing it for the preservation of life. But women are still going to get it done, even if it's illegal, and it'll be more unsafe, so then we're putting their lives at risk too. So if you think about it, do you really want to keep the woman safe, or just do it for the child to have an unsafe life because the woman's not prepared to have a child at all?
Thank you. Mike 1.
An argument that I constantly see against abortion is that, well, you should face the consequence that word of your actions. And what I say to that is, what about rape? People never want to be raped. No one has been raped is like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that happened to me. And then lots of times they'll be impregnated, and they won't have a choice if abortion is illegal to not have to deal with that. And I believe someone else said it before, they will probably end up hating that child as well.
Thank you. And Mike 2.
When it comes to abortion and anything involving women and their reproductive organs, I think it's dehumanizing that men are allowed to even have a say in this matter. Women have always been fighting for the bare minimum for centuries, and it's truly infuriating that we have to continue this nonsense. Also, when a child is born, the government does little to nothing for these children. So why do they feel the need to determine what a woman can or can't do with her own body? I think this matter is the easiest example of how the government, who's always benefited men, view women, and it's truly dehumanizing at its core.
Thank you. Mic one.
I would like to say I feel like black women specifically go to suffer through getting that chance of abortion because unfortunately in this country we are seen as sexual beasts. And girls who are younger too, and just all types of ages of black women, and like we're more in that chance of being raped and not having that chance to get like the abortion rights we need. And I feel like we need to talk about that, and it just needs to stop because we're human beings too, and we should love ourselves and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you. Delegates, at this time, all those in favor for a 5-minute extension? That passes. All right, we will be extending by 5 minutes. Mic 2.
I believe that no true democracy would ever threaten the privacy of an individual, especially between a doctor and a patient. That just doesn't sound like freedom, it doesn't sound like liberty, and it's infringing on people's pursuit of happiness. And as other people have said before, it's not going to stop abortions, it's only going to stop legal and safe medical abortions. It's really just infringing on people's rights to get safe access to medical treatment, even with stuff like ectopic pregnancies and birth deformities. It's not always just cases of rape and incest, which still should be kind of accounted for, but it's more of a broader issue than just that.
Thank you. And mic 1.
I think that whether or not you take it away, if you take away abortion, you're gonna make women go to more drastic and unsafe measures to get that medical procedure. And if you expect a woman to carry a baby to term, you have to give that woman prenatal care, and you also have to fix the foster care system before you can actually do anything. And not only that, what case is okay for abortion and what is not? Are you going to decide that one case is morally wrong, that somebody can get an abortion, but one case isn't as morally bad and they can't get one?
Thank you. Mic 2.
I feel like people underestimate like the role the environment like people are in plays like a part in like their situations in which they would need an abortion. Like a lot of the times people in like lower income environments such as like the projects and like even Philadelphia and Chicago, places like that, like they don't always have access to things such as tampons, pads, like contraceptives, things like that. So it's just like when these things happen, like people are a product of their environment, and who are we to judge them and where they come from and put them in even worse situations just because we failed them as a government. Like it's our job to provide people with affordable and accessible health care, and the fact that we are letting people down and putting them in these situations to where now they have to scramble for cash to try and like plan their life out to provide for a kid because men want to take away their right to have a choice in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, and mic 1.
I think the banning of abortion won't get rid of abortion, it'll just get rid of the safe abortions, and people are still going to get abortions whether the government likes it or not, or whether their state likes it or not. So I think in order to keep abortion, we need to keep it safe, we need to keep it legal, and also we need to fix like our foster care system first. If we're gonna get rid of the option of abortion, we should have a more reliable foster care system.
Thank you. Mic 2.
An abortion ban will only serve to harm poor people. Recently in Texas, a woman found out that her fetus had trisomy 18, which meant that after it was born, it would soon die because it had three chromosomes on the, it was gonna die soon after it was born. And the state said that she could not have an abortion, and every doctor that she went to in the state refused to give it to her because they're at risk of losing their medical license if they did. So she had to go out of state to get an abortion, which is lucky for her, but for poor people who might not be able to drive out to entirely another state to get an abortion, they won't have any options.
Thank you.
Women should be allowed to decide for themselves if they will or won't have an abortion within the legal. Every situation has so many different circumstances why someone would want to get an abortion. With the bans and restrictions in over 20 states, women who don't have enough money to seek one out of state can resort to unsafe methods, which is one of the 5 leading causes of maternal mortality, even though it's completely preventable. 9 million women and girls face complications like lifelong injuries and severe disabilities due to unsafe abortions, and around 23,000 of them die. To protect these rights, we need change. Legislation ensuring access to safe abortions and safeguarding privacy is paramount. It is not merely about legality, it is about humanity, dignity, and the fundamental right to make decisions about one's body and future. It is time to empower women with choices without putting their lives on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Delegates, unfortunately, that does conclude our speaking time for this topic. I encourage you to continue speaking out about this topic in small groups, and don't, just because this conversation is over doesn't mean that your conversations about abortion have to be over. Thank you. We are going to move on to immigration with Zachary Arnold.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, before we move on, we are going to vote on the topic of abortion. So the question that we're going to vote on is, should abortion be kept legal in the United States? All those in favor?
Well, we just heard it from the delegates. The vote is an aye on the right to have an abortion. Liz, Alex, what's going on down there? How are you guys feeling about that one?
It was more or less what I expected, honestly. A lot of typically liberal points of view. A lot of people, especially women, coming out in support of abortion rights in the United States of America, and it was passed. It's part of our party platform now. So.
And I think it's really interesting when they were voting for whether abortion should be kept legal or not. Majority of the yeses were female, and majority of the noes were, actually I think all of the noes were male, so I just found that really interesting. We didn't get to hear from any conservative speakers, which I wish we had a little more time so we could hear their points of views, but regardless, it was really nice to hear a bunch of great points about why abortion should be kept legal.
Yeah, I would agree. It was definitely a very strong female-centric voice coming out there. But we are going to move it on down to the floor where they are starting our next topic, immigration, with Zachary Arnold.
Southern border. So this is really not just one issue, it is a whole gamut of issues. And I think it's really important that we all hear what everybody thinks about this, because it is going to change our nation. We have to decide whether or not we embrace multiculturalism, integrate new immigrants, or assimilate the population into an already existing American culture. And I think with that, if anybody wants to come up and speak on this issue. I got one. Mike one.
So my mother is an immigrant. She immigrated here from the Philippines. She grew up in a bamboo stick house, living with basically nothing. And I think that we should open borders. We should have open borders to this country. Fortunately enough, my mom didn't travel here illegally. She came here legally because her father is a U.S. military personnel. But I think that we should put in perspective about the people who don't have that type of accessibility to come here legally. So I think that we should have open borders. So.
Thank you. Mike two.
I feel that the United States frequently uses the term alien to dehumanize immigrants coming across either of our borders. I think we're using the term alien just to disguise the fact that in most cases it's just racism. Because looking at the Canadian border with the United States, there's no wall. We don't focus on that. Like, what's up with that? And then the test to become a U.S. citizen, most American citizens born here can't really pass that. at all. Like, they ask the most random questions. It reminds me of the literacy test given to black people in the 1960s before they could vote, which is another way that they were able to disguise racism. I feel like it should be way easier to become a U.S. citizen from especially the south border. You shouldn't leave your own country out of fear to come in here, and then fear for your own safety in the country you're fleeing to. It's just not good.
All right, thank you. Mike Wine.
I believe the situation at our south border is kind of unfortunate because there's a lot of people who are trying to immigrate legally and for good reasons, but there's also a lot of criminals who are causing problems there. And even for the people who are trying to immigrate legally in our current situation, there's no government control over immigration, and a lot of people who are trying to just come to the U.S. for a better life are being human trafficked at the southern border, and they're being murdered, and there's a lot of crime there. So I think we need to reform legal immigration a lot to make it a lot easier for people to come into the country, but we also need to tighten military control on the southern border to stop crime, and for that reason I do support the border wall.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
I'm speaking as an immigrant myself, and I believe that America's just scared that immigrants are just gonna take over America, and that just proves that we're just smarter and we're just gonna be
All right, thank you. Mike 1.
I think that immigration, we should allow more avenues towards citizenship and allow more immigration, because I think it would be a good impact on our economy as more people coming in to work obviously means more people also buying stuff, which means which would increase the GDP.
All right, thank you. Now, I just want to give like a little note. If you want to come up here and degrade people, please do not. Come here with actual serious opinions and be respectful. All right, Mike 2.
Over 18% of the workforce is made up of immigrants, and that's not even including the descendant of immigrants, so I feel like it's very important to let them into our country. And also the fact that I think a big concern is the security risk. We do have the Department of Homeland Security. In 2001, we say the Patriot Act. We have so much security in the states that we don't have to worry about that, and we should let people in the country who are escaping autocratic regimes and regimes that are honestly just destroying their homes to a safer country like America.
All right, thank you. Mike 1.
If you come to America, you want to work, you want to raise a family, then by all means that's your right to be here. If you come through the legal process, which needs to be reformed, as a previous delegate said, then that's your right to be here. And for those that are afraid of immigrants coming to this country, America was founded on immigration. It was the English and, of course, the forced slaves that came here. They were immigrants here. Then it was the Irish, then it was the Italians and the Chinese, and now it's the Mexicans. It's just, it always happens, and we have to embrace them, not turn them away.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
Yeah. Allowing in more immigrants and allowing existing illegal immigrants to attain citizenship is almost expressly a positive thing. If you just want to look at the numbers, I mean, allowing more legal immigrants to enter the country, allowing existing immigrants to become legal, that's trillions of dollars benefiting the economy. That's hundreds of thousands of new jobs being created. And additionally, I mean, a good point is, like, who lives in Wyoming? Like, it's not like space is a problem either. Like, Wyoming, Nebraska, the Dakotas, you know what I mean? Like, there's space, there is, opportunity, there is economic opportunity, and there are only positive benefits for the most part.
All right, thank you. Mike 1. Mike 1.
as someone who comes from a family of mostly immigrants, I think that illegal immigration is a big problem in this country, and I feel okay, I think that illegal immigrants are a problem because the U.S., the government can't like keep track of who's coming and who's coming out of our borders, and that is a security problem within itself. Like, have you ever thought about like what kind of people illegally come into this country? Like, I've heard stories from my dad about how like he traveled with in the group he was traveling with when he came to this country, there was like an unprecedented amount of criminals that were like traveling with him when he came to this country originally. And
thank you. It's time up. All right. Mike 2.
Good morning, North Penn. Let's face the facts. Immigrants have consistently contributed to our economy. According to the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, immigration has a positive impact on long-term economic growth. Yes, I agree, there are definitely debates on policy. Should there be standards to keep criminal and illegal immigrants out? Of course. But let's not forget that America's very essence is rooted in being a land of opportunity. Studies show that immigrant-founded companies create jobs and drive economic progress. Controversial or not, we must acknowledge that immigrants aren't just statistics. They are individuals seeking refuge from oppression and poverty, bringing with them stories and dreams that add to the vibrancy to the American narrative. It's time to embrace policies that reflect the values on which America was built, fostering a nation that stands as a beacon of hope, opportunity, and yes, with some controversy. Thank you, everyone.
Mike 1. Mike 1.
Okay, so as an immigrant myself, I've seen, I have a lot of family, and I've seen people that immigrated here illegally and legally. I just believe we can make legal immigration a lot better. But as for the situation in the south border, I feel like we should just have better security because, as I said, I have seen people, I am an immigrant, and I can definitely say there's a lot more bad people that immigrate illegally than legally.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
The issue isn't that immigrants are coming into our country, but why are we making it so hard for them to achieve a better life? I recently read an article written by a first-generation immigrant child who spoke of all the gang violence and cartel issues in some of the countries that are just beyond our borders. And some might say that this isn't our issue, but obviously it's an issue that they're coming here, so why not provide them with the tools to get them back on their feet, or at least donate the same amount of funding that we're donating to Ukraine to them? Overall, I just think that this speaks to the systemic racism ingrained within America, which affects all aspects of our government, because we can donate $77 billion to our European counterparts overseas, but we can't help the people suffering within our own hemisphere.
All right, thank you. All right. All in favor of a time extension? Aye. Aye. All not in favor? Nay.
Let's redo that.
Yeah. All right, all in favor, aye? Aye. All not in favor, nay? Nay. Okay, ayes have it. Okay. Mike 1.
All right, so I think that the conversations that have been going around about immigration and especially illegal immigration have failed to mention the fact that American imperialism is the main cause of all the immigration that comes, especially from Latin America.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that...
Zach, let him speak. You can't go there.
He can talk about whatever he wants to decide. Was that Glenn? Can we call Glenn back up to the mic? Yeah.
We can call him back.
Do you want to come back?
Can we call Glenn back up to the mic, please?
I I apologize. I did not know where you were going with that.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, instead of focusing on the fact that immigrants are coming, we should try to solve the fact that there's so much immigration, especially brain drain in those poor countries. Those poor countries are losing skilled workers from them. And yes, they add value to us, but at what cost to those countries? Those countries are only going to get poorer and poorer with the loss of labor. So I think instead of focusing on tightening border security or conversely loosening border security, it's better if we provide either aid to those countries or at the very least stop interfering in their affairs, stop exploiting their cheap labor, and et cetera, et cetera.
All right, thank you. All right, Mike 2.
As a daughter of a family of immigrants, I have seen the hardships of this experience of trying to be naturalized, and so have many of my peers around me. An example of one of these hardships is the naturalization test that has a civics and English component. I know that as a U.S. citizen myself, that I would not know half of the questions myself, and neither would half of you here in this room, meaning most of us would not be considered citizens ourselves. Not only that, but the English component can be difficult for people since the median for the age of people who take the citizenship test is 41 years old. As we know, as you age, the more difficult it becomes to learn a new language and its components. We are also a country that prides ourselves on diversity, but doesn't accept the fact that English is not everyone's native language or even a second one. I understand understanding English is in a country...
I'm going to have to cut you off. Thank you. Sorry. Mike 1.
I do want to let you guys know, if speeches exceed about a minute, then we do have to cut you off. That's not like it's not any content-based issue. That's just an us thing, unfortunately, because we have to keep this debate process going. But if you are under a minute, we don't reserve the right to cut you off, as long as you're being proper, you're being respectful, and you're maintaining decorum. That's all.
Yeah, so right now we have about like 2.5 minutes left, so I want to get this moving. So Mike 1.
Yeah, so America is supposed to be a land of free and be open to more and better opportunities. My mom came to the U.S. from Trinidad to set up better opportunities for myself. So we should legalize immigration so then people from other more poor countries can come over here and set up more opportunities for not just themselves, but their kids.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
I'm representing Nikki Haley, but I believe that if the United States made becoming a citizen easier to immigrants, and if the United States was kinder to immigrants, I think more immigrants would want to come in legally than illegally. So I think that it's an issue with partially us and not all the blame on them.
All right, thank you. Mike 1.
All right. I'm speaking out myself as an immigrant. Many of the people over here have had much struggles immigrating over to the U.S., and U.S. itself is believed as, a land of the immigrants. It's built by immigrants for many years. Several of us have struggled for several decades. Most of us haven't had any of our process of naturalization, even though we have worked for American gross income. The labors for many immigrants have been very harsh, and none of them have ever been able to have any legal rights. And much of the southern border have stripped people from their families. Much of them have been trafficked. And because of that, it's caused much more problems to the population itself of immigrants. So I believe they should be treated more carefully and respected. And I believe there should be more security towards the southern border from trafficking and every other kind of, cartel system.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
I'm speaking as a representative of Vivek Ramaswamy and a child of 2 immigrants. And while I do feel that immigration should be legal and that there should be no people here that have not gone in illegally, I believe that dealing with these illegal immigrants has been a disaster. I feel like we as a people should not be putting people into cages like animals. And I also believe that that is just not something that America stands for. I believe that instead of worrying so much about how to deport these illegal people, I believe that we should be focusing our energy on actually bringing jobs back to America and giving these people more opportunities to get their citizenship and make it easier for them to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we actually have to vote for an extension again to let the last two speakers speak. So all in favor, aye? Aye. All not in favor, nay? Nay. Okay, both of you can go. You have 1 minute each.
I think that most people come to the United States to look for better opportunities for themselves and their families, and it would just be wrong to deny them that. And all they do is, bring forth more economic strength and more diversity to our country. So I think if you're trying to solve the illegal immigration issue, you should try making them easier to become more legal.
All right, thank you. Mike 2.
Donald Trump, I think that we should secure the southern border because the cartel and all the criminal activities going on down there, we can't have it disrupting our country. And we have to secure our borders.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for being so respectful, and I think it is now time to actually vote on the issue whether or not we want to increase immigration to America. So all in favor of increasing immigration to America, say aye. Aye. All not in favor, nay. Nay. Okay, maybe we could redo that again. All in favor, aye. Aye. All not in favor, nay. I think the ayes slightly have it, so thank you.
All right, folks, there we have it. That was a nay vote from the delegates. Definitely a lot of passion, a lot of tension up there from the stage. Owen, do you want to give your take on that?
I gotta say, this is quite possibly our most lively debate yet. I mean, we got that double aye vote to get 10 extra minutes of time. And, it was great to see the expansion of this issue go beyond even just the more basic idea of just immigration and go into, some of the larger ideological ideas of racism and acceptance and also the historical aspects of immigrants' roles in America. It was excellent to see those points be brought up as they are very important to this discussion here. Whatchamacallit? Yeah, no, I think that's about all. I'll send it right back to you, Anna.
Thanks, Owen. I would definitely agree. We're getting a lot of different perspectives today. All right, we're going to send it down to the floor with Alex and Liz to see what they're thinking of this one.
So I personally think that this debate was very, very spirited, and obviously we got so many perspectives, like Owen said. We have a lot of people speaking who come from immigrant families, and I think that was really interesting. And I also think that this immigration debate will tie into the drug policy, because a lot of Republicans have the opinion that the reason that we have such a fentanyl opioid crisis in America is because we're too lenient when it comes to the borders, especially since drugs are the opioid crisis is it comes from, a lot of it's made in China and Mexico. So I think it'll be really interesting to see if people bring that topic up as well.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. Liz hit the nail on the head.
All
yeah,
right.
just very interesting to see. All right, send it back to you, Anna.
Hate to cut you off, but it does look like we are getting set to talk about the Middle East crisis with Korea Shah, which is bound to be interesting, so let's send it down to the floor.
Notably seen during the 1973 oil crisis, when Arab states blocked U.S. oil imports because of their long-standing support for Israel, which quadrupled the price of gas here. Our question for you today: what should the U.S. policy be in this crisis? You may make your way to the mics. Get up. Okay, mic 2.
Although I do agree with the idea of spreading democracy to all of the globe, how do we as a country feel entitled enough to do such a thing in a conflict that has been going on for decades when our own citizens are on the streets and starving? I believe that America needs to start betting on itself to be the greatest country in the world and be a role model for all others instead of sending money to all these other wars. Yeah, thank you. That's it.
All right, mic 1.
Wait, as a rather devout Catholic Christian myself, I am really concerned with the continued existence of the Palestinian Christian community, which is being threatened by this ongoing war. And I also believe that the ongoing condemnation of Palestine that we constantly see in our media is quite unfair, because while Israel has been given so much aid by the U.S., Palestine is more or less independent, with the exception of some Iranian support, and so I think we ought to give more sympathy to the Palestinian cause. And lastly, a cause for Palestine is not necessarily anti-Semitic in and of itself, because it is possible, and in fact ideal, if there's a binational state in Palestine, one state in which both Jews and Arabs can coexist, and that idea goes against Zionism and imperialism as a whole.
Thank you. We'll go to Mike 2.
Make no mistake, the actions by Hamas on October 7th were abhorrent. But the actions of Israel have been just as, if not even more. Since that day, we've seen the use of white phosphorus on civilian targets, the bombing of humanitarian corridors, more reported deaths than like an unprecedented level of journalists and reporter deaths, and multiple calls by high-ranking government officials, including the Prime Minister and cabinet members of Israel, for an ethnic cleansing or genocide of the Gaza Strip, in addition to increased settler violence in the West Bank. I believe that if America wants to keep its role as a defender of peace and rights of people all over the world, it cannot continue to send unconditional aid to Israel.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Mike 1.
I'm an Orthodox Christian, and like the young man before me said, Israel has committed terrible acts against the Christian Palestinians as well as the Muslim Palestinians. I have a Muslim cousin who's been to Palestine. He's told me all the terrible stuff they've done. I'm not anti-Semitic, I don't support genocide, but as a Christian, I cannot support Zionism, which tortures its Muslim and Christian citizens just because they don't follow Talmudic law. And for that, I just want to say, Middle East peace, Palestine will be free, Christ is King. Thank you.
All right, speaker at Mike 2.
While we cannot turn a blind eye to the disgusting events of October 7th, a situation which began under the claim of self-defense has quickly transformed into a clear genocide of the Palestinian people. As thousands of children are dying and continue to die as we talk now, I feel that we need to educate ourselves on the situation both before and after the events of October 7th. The Western media has a clear bias and continues to omit details of the situation to the public, and I believe we need to educate ourselves on how to decide how to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mike 1.
The amount of money being sent to Israel in the midst of this crisis is outrageous in my opinion, because all this money, our tax dollars, are going to bombing children and families in Palestine instead of going to the people dying in our streets in America. We should be mad about this. This is, it enrages me.
Thank you, Speaker. Mike 2, you have the floor.
This isn't a war or a conflict. It's ethnic cleansing. It's a genocide that's happening. The same thing that China's been doing to Uyghur Muslims in Central Asia, and what happened in Armenia after World War I. It's the same thing. And the fact that over $130 billion have been sent to Israel from the past 75 years is revolting, to say the least. And I think that not only the U.S., but the West should support Palestine and should not be supporting a regime like Israel.
Thank you, Speaker. All right, we'll continue Mike 2.
The Jewish people deserve safety and security like all people do, but Zionism is not an ideology that is designed to protect safety and security for Jewish people. It's an ideology that has existed to eradicate the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people have been suffering not for the past 90 days, they have been suffering since 1947. 30,000 Palestinians have died in the past 90 days, and hundreds continue to die each and every day, while we continue to fund Israel with billions of dollars over the past couple of years and hundreds of millions of dollars each and every year. The bombing campaigns in Gaza have been indiscriminate and unjustifiable completely, and simply the only solution is to stop funding Israel in its entirety, to condemn the actions of Israel in killing innocent Palestinians, to place economic sanctions and embargoes on Israel, and to work towards a solution of a unitary state where Arabs and Jews in Israel can live together without this needless conflict.
Thank you, Speaker. We'll continue, Mike 2.
What the U.S. has done, continuously funding Israel, is a clear case of hypocrisy. U.S. is so quick to send money to Ukraine, but forgets to protect Ukrainian children and mothers. But what about the Palestinian mothers and children? Where is the money? Where is the humanitarian aid that they cannot receive? There have been thousands killed in the last 90 days, Palestinians alike, Palestinians and Jewish people. And what we need to do as U.S. is stop funding this ethnic cleansing and genocide. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. All right. We'll continue, Mike 2.
I'm just disappointed in the U.S. They sent $100 billion to fight people with no army, and it's just disappointing. And free Palestine.
All right, are there any more speakers on this topic? We have about 3 minutes left. Please make your way to the mics if so. All right, seeing no other speakers, then we will move on to voting procedure. The question that I ask you today is, should America continue their support of funding Israel? All ayes? Aye. And all the nays? The nays have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Conflict. We're going to take it down to Alex and Liz and see what they have to say about this one.
Yeah, it went more or less as I expected. They voted to stop sending aid to Israel. That's more or less what I anticipated. There was a lot of support for Palestine among the youth. It went more or less, honestly, as I anticipated.
This is certainly one of our quicker debates, I'd say. Why do you think that is?
Our generation is rather united in their support of Palestine, from what I can tell.
Well, I don't disagree on that one. Liz, anything to add?
No, I think Alex said it all. I agree with it totally.
Well, that's excellent. We're going to throw it back to Owen real quick. Owen, what do you think?
Thanks, Anna. Well, I got to say, probably the two most prominent words that I heard used were ethnic cleansing and genocide, both just in general and to describe what has been going against the Palestinian people, and also in historical reference to previous happenings that have been going against in, say, World War II. Very important topics of discussion and very important things to bring up when debating this idea of pro-Palestine versus pro-Israel. Interesting, yeah. That's about all. I'll send it back to the desk.
Sorry to cut you off there, Owen, but we are going to head back down to the floor for our next debate, which is on healthcare, led by MJ Tariq.
Microphones.
All right. Let's start with microphone 1.
On the topic of a tax increase, yeah, I'm paying a little more in taxes, but if I break my leg, I'd have to spend more on a hospital bill than I would higher taxes. Along with that, it's a human right. We should all be able to access medical care no matter who we are.
Thank you. All right, while people are speaking, please remain quiet so we can hear them. Microphone 2.
So I'm a little bit stressed right now from this, but I'm gonna do my spiel and get out. So me personally, I feel like America should have universal health care because like charging for health care, I feel like it's kind of like, it's kind of dumb because why should I pay for health care when the government should be supplying it for us to, you know, like if you need to go to the hospital and it's an emergency and they give you this atrocious, just all this stuff to pay for, like $1,000 for like penicillin or something like that, doesn't make sense to me. So I just feel like healthcare should be universal for this, and whatever.
Thank you. Microphone 1, please.
The United States spends the most per capita in the entire world on healthcare, yet our life expectancy in the past few years has been going down. And while it's not all from having poor healthcare, obviously there's other factors involved, I think that we should have a universal healthcare. And I also think leaving it up to the private sector would be a bad idea, as the main motive of the private sector is profit and not actually helping people.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. All right, microphone 2.
$123,000. That's right. $123,000 to get an open heart surgery. My grandma had a stroke 5 years ago. College, forget about that. My family wouldn't have been able to afford anything if we had to pay for that all out of pocket. Healthcare initiatives are needed for the success of our country, for the success of families across the nation. I'm not advocating for socialism or nationalized medicine like the UK, but we do need initiatives in place to help support families so we can have a healthy and happy country. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to microphone 1.
So I believe we should have universal health care. From what I've heard from various people online, EpiPens are majorly expensive, and people who have serious allergies really need those, because even if you try to avoid, let's say, peanuts the best you can, there are some allergies where even if you just smell something, you're like out cold. And so what are you supposed to do if someone brings like peanut butter crackers to lunch and they sit near you, even though I know there are some tables where it's like peanut free at some schools. I don't know if ours do. I don't think North Penn does. I haven't seen one at least. So yeah, universal health care.
Thank you. Microphone 2, please.
As America's health decreases and as the cost of living increases, I think the need for a more affordable and government-funded health care will increase. My mom has type 1 diabetes, and if the Affordable Care Act were to be repealed, any insurance company could reject any claim she made off of the basis that she had a pre-existing condition. So I think the expansion of public health care and the regulation of private health care are very important.
Thank you. All right, microphone 1.
Say is that if you need medication, it should be affordable and available.
Totally. Thank you. Microphone 2.
As someone who comes from a low-income immigrant family, I feel like our current healthcare system is really hurtful to low-income people and immigrants, because even though there are programs in place to state and federal to help people afford healthcare, it is not very accessible at times because these programs aren't publicized as much as they should be. So I feel like at the bare minimum, federal aid for healthcare should be improved, and the publicization of these programs should be improved.
Thank you. All right, microphone 1.
I think healthcare should definitely be more affordable, and there's a lot of other countries out there in Europe that have free healthcare. But it just doesn't make sense for U.S. as one of the world's superpowers to not have affordable healthcare. A lot of it comes from, I'm not just talking from a consumer standpoint, I'm also talking about doctors and jobs. I feel like if you work for a hospital, if you're a nurse or a doctor, it should be considered a government job. And I feel like part of our taxes should also go towards the pay for hospitals and the hospital workers. So instead of just spending more on military and spending more on like roads that really get no help, I feel like we should also extend some of our taxes to the healthcare workers.
Thank you. Just a warning, we have a little bit under 4 minutes left. Microphone 2.
So much of the opposition to government intervention in healthcare relates mostly to the idea of how will it affect my taxes? What's it going to do to my wallet? But I have to ask the question, if my tax dollars can go toward keeping low-income families with healthcare, with quality healthcare that they deserve and they need, then I say my tax dollars are well spent. If I can use my tax dollars to help pay qualified medical professionals to perform surgeries and life-saving operations for those who need them, I say my tax dollars are well spent. I think we need to consider whether we are saving lives or simply saving our money. Thank you.
Microphone 1.
I'd just like to say that healthcare is a basic human right, and no matter your financial situation, you should not have to worry about getting it. I have people in my family who would rather Uber to a hospital than ride in an ambulance because of how absurd healthcare prices are nowadays. And honestly, I just hope that the government realizes that this country is for the people, and healthcare is clearly not for the people because you have to pay such an absurd amount of money. And yeah.
Thank you. We have a little bit under 2.5 minutes remaining. Microphone 2.
I believe universal health care is a thing that could happen, but not necessarily always the most viable thing. At the very least, I think there should be regulation on cost of medicine and medication. The most recent basis of this would be the $35 cap on insulin costs by the Biden administration most recent years. But I think that should be streamlined to more medications and more things. And there are also things such as medical services you can only receive by going through insurances, as there are some doctors that will not perform just based off cost or things such as that.
Thank you. All right, microphone 1.
I believe universal health care is needed. Many people live paycheck to paycheck and stuff happens. You get injuries and you shouldn't have to pay thousands of dollars to have surgery on something that wasn't even your fault. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you. All right, microphone 2, please.
I believe healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. How often have you seen a GoFundMe so that somebody can continue their life-saving treatment? Nobody should have to go to those lengths in order to stay alive. I have known people who have gone years without seeing a doctor just because they cannot afford it.
Thank you. All right, we have just under a minute left. Microphone 1.
I believe that healthcare should be affordable. I believe it's a basic human right. But I mostly believe that there should be a limit to how much companies can price different medicines, because I think even now with medicines for diabetes like Ozempic, it's now being used for people that have more money that can afford it to do like recreational things like lose weight. But I also believe strongly in improving health education in different minority communities where education is kind of limited. So, yeah.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
7 years ago, I lost my grandfather. He was in Philadelphia hospital, and he needed a new kidney. It costed too much out of our price range. We sold our car, wasn't even enough. I just think healthcare should just be given to people, just everyone at this point, because we need it. You know, and I don't want anyone to go through what I experienced, having to say goodbye to my grandfather like that. It hurts me at this point.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss. Now, the time is up, but are we in interest of a 5-minute extension? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. I think the ayes have it. All right. These 3 more comments, then we're up. Microphone 1.
Hello. I believe that universal healthcare will become necessary if the government doesn't start cracking down on the pharmaceutical industry specifically. The upcharges on medications such as insulin for diabetic patients who genuinely need it
like their life hinges on that medication, and yet the pharmaceutical industry is still able to upcharge for these medications, and that's leading to patients who need the medication not being able to get it, not due to the fact that there isn't enough of it, but because of the fact that they can't actually afford the medication.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
Right now in this country, the people that spend the most for healthcare are those with the least money to spend on it. Because currently in this system, those without insurance are generally those who are less well off and are forced to pay massive overinflated prices. I think that's what's so great about taxes. We get to make the wealthy pay for things that everyone needs as a basic human right. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Speaking as someone who has endured a major spinal fusion surgery, I can say that I'm extremely grateful that majority of it was covered by insurance. However, I understand that not everybody has had the same experience that I have, and I do believe that healthcare industries have immense funding for research and to perform these surgeries and other medical whatnot, but not everybody is able to pay for insurance or have life-altering surgeries like I had to have, so I think that ultimately it should be more affordable for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. If you'd like to make a comment, please come up to the microphones. Microphone 1.
I'll start with this. I was hit by a car earlier this year, and because both my parents were out of state, I had to take an ambulance ride. It was about 15 minutes, no emergency lights or sirens. And at the end, the bill, nothing broken either. The bill came out to about $8,000, and we still had to dispute it with the insurance company. That's absurd, in my opinion. And in addition to that, I wanted to say I'm grateful to have the insurance from my father's company benefits, but to those who say that taxes would be raised for a pointless reason, you're already paying for it in your benefits out of your paycheck. So there's no point in just changing it to the taxes, which can be spent towards other things as well.
Yeah, thank you. Now that the discussion for healthcare is up, I'll propose the question to the crowd. Now, are we in favor of the government stepping in and making healthcare more affordable? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to send it down to Alex and Liz to see what their comments are on this one. Alex, Liz?
I think we saw a lot of people, majority of the people who spoke, if not all, were in favor of making healthcare more affordable, which is very refreshing to see. We had some very heartfelt stories, which I also thought were a nice touch. People really evoked some personal emotions. They talked about their own experiences and how not having affordable healthcare can be so detrimental to families who maybe are more low income. So it was really great to see that.
I hate to cut you off once again, but we are going to go down to Will Bernal with drug policy.
U.S. rivals. Additionally, the decriminalization of marijuana and other drugs for either recreational or medical use has become an increasingly debated topic, which is what we will delve into today. So our main question is, there's three. What should the United States do about the fentanyl crisis? What should the U.S. legalize the recreational use of marijuana? And should small amounts of currently illegal drugs be made legal? Please step up to the mics if you have an opinion to share about these topics. Huh? Yeah, I will. Okay, mic 1.
Okay, fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans every year. It is an international crisis. Families are greatly affected from this, as especially the person using. While the opioid epidemic as a whole was heightened in the 90s, the number of overdoses in 2021 was over 6 times that of 1999. There were 107,000 known overdoses in 2021. Over 75% resulted from opioid use. No matter your political stance, you should see this as a big issue. Fentanyl can be shipped to the United States in such small quantities and be put into prescribed medication that no one would even bat an eye until it's your parent or your cousin or your sibling who's overdosed. A dose of fentanyl as little as 2 milliliters can cause an overdose, and laws need to be put on the distribution of opioid and fentanyl. People need to vote for the safety of the people. Death is not political until too many people are dying.
Thank you. Mike 2.
In regards to the question of should small amounts of current illegal drugs be illegal, I'm very firm in the belief that the legalization and regulations of a lot of these more intensive and more extreme and usually qualified as more dangerous drugs would significantly help a lot of the people who are already addicted to those things be able to get the help that they need, because it's not such an insane situation you're put in. The regulation would essentially just help everybody. It would just help a lot of, especially marginalized communities, be able to pull out of situations in which they were already. I've lost track of what I was saying. I will step away now.
Okay, thank you. Mike 1.
I think that the fentanyl crisis should be helped by the government giving more outlets, such as rehab and addiction help for people who are addicted to fentanyl and who are not dying from fentanyl, but are in risk of dying from fentanyl, especially targeted communities, such as the Black community. I think that the U.S. should also legalize the recreational use of marijuana, because it doesn't affect any part of your health except for addiction. It's not like smoking, where it affects your lungs and it can cause lung cancer and all these other types of cancer, like throat cancer. And lastly, I think that small amounts of currently illegal drugs should not be legal, because all it takes is just one take of the drug to get addicted. Okay. So,
thank you. Mike 2.
In regards to the fentanyl crisis, I do think rehab is a much better option than just putting them in jail, because people in jail still do drugs. You can put them in jail and they're still going to be addicted. It doesn't really change anything. So giving them an outlet or rehab would definitely help lower the frequency that people overdose from fentanyl, since they have this source to rely on. And then for the second question, should the U.S. legalize the recreational use of marijuana? I think so. Quite frankly, it's not going to kill you unless you do 18 pounds. But who's going to smoke 18 pounds?
Okay, thank you. Mike 1.
I think that the issue of drugs is sort of connected to the issue of illegal immigration, which we talked about earlier. So basically, to address the problem, we have to get at its root cause. Why does the drug trade proliferate so much? And I think it's because of the fact that drugs are illegal in the first place. That means a higher cost of production, and that means more monopolization of the drug trade, and that means those few drug cartels are able to raise the price so much. So if we legalize drugs in at least some way, that can lead to the reduction of drug prices, and that could mean that the drug trade becomes less profitable, and thus it proliferates less. Or even if it does proliferate more, there'll be more easier access for people who are on drugs to seek the rehabilitation they need.
Okay, thank you. Mike 2.
Decriminalization works if it's done correctly. In Portugal, they previously had one of the worst opiate crises they were ever facing in the country. After decriminalizing drugs, it turns out the drug overdoses are the lowest in the EU. So instead of sending hundreds of thousands of people every single year to private prisons to be treated like dogs, we should instead work on fixing these people and helping them get through this, especially when drugs are affecting POC communities and black men are being imprisoned 13 times more than white men for the same exact drug offenses.
Okay, thank you. Mike 1.
One of the most important things to remember about drug policy is addiction is not a crime. Many of us have lost family or friends to drug abuse, and it's not something that anybody should have to go through alone. And that's why I think that the government should take a more involved role in helping those who struggle with substance abuse to get a better rehabilitation and to get clean, and I think that would be really beneficial. And I additionally think that with fentanyl, with how addictive it is, I think that the sellers and those who create and distribute it should be held more accountable than those who actually take it into their bodies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike 2.
So about the opioid crisis, I think as a nation, I think we should affront this issue. I mean, looking at what's happening in Canada, it's really bad, like in major cities and less fortunate communities. The main targets are these less fortunate communities who are really prone to opioid addiction and all these other things. And I think that we should take initiative to limit the accessibility, but also enhance people's awareness about this opioid crisis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here's your 4-minute warning that all my colleagues have been doing. Mic 1.
I feel as though that just like specifically talking about the legalization of marijuana, if that does happen, then there should be like limits and restrictions on it, because I feel like it is a good thing to legalize it. It would stop like the kids getting into like laced stuff. It would be safer, a better option, but it is a gateway drug, so it does cause and bring up some of those concerns about it could lead into other drugs, getting into other drugs. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mic 2.
I believe that marijuana should be legalized for 2 reasons. One, we allow more harmful drugs currently to be legal, specifically alcohol and tobacco. Tobacco obviously can leads to lung cancer and mouth cancer often, and alcohol is horrible for your liver in large quantities. And the other reason why I think marijuana should be legalized is it would make people who are looking to get marijuana, the sources of their marijuana safer, as if a drug dealer laces their marijuana and you get it from the street, they can just move somewhere else. Well, if you're getting it from a store and it's laced, you can't move the entire store.
Okay, thank you. Mic 1.
I believe that the biggest thing that could help, especially with like drug and education, is just like increasing education when it comes to lacing and different things with drugs. I think if you take a look at Kensington is a big place for people that are addicted. They walk out on the street and it's very much normalized. And people that have addictions, especially with drugs, like they were our age, like they've sat in auditoriums, they've been in these places, and I think a lot of the time is people don't have the support system or access to education to really think about their decisions and how what they're doing is harming themselves. So I believe that through educating people about fentanyl and different gateway drugs, it can really help reduce the rates of people that are overdosing.
Thank you. Mic 2.
Hello. I think like they should make weed legal and stuff. You mean? Because like they were saying, cigarettes and alcohol is already legal, and I say in most cases like alcohol is way worse than weed on like a regular basis. And I also feel like, you know what I mean, like hardcore drugs, you mean, like crack and heroin and stuff, you mean, they should make like safe zones for that. So like, cause people are going to do it if they want to do it, but at least they should be in a place where like they don't die. You know what I mean? So like that's my personal opinion on the situation.
Okay, thank you. Mic 1.
Like one of my other delegates said, addiction is not a crime. And I also have someone very near to me who suffered a massive stroke, and the only way he's even able to move and get out of bed in the morning is with the use of marijuana. So I believe that marijuana should be legalized, and instead of criminalizing drugs, we should open up more facilities for rehabilitation and to get them the help they need. Thank you.
Any last people to the mics? Okay, and at this time we are going to be proposing 2 questions. The first question is, should the government be focusing on rehabilitation rather than criminal action for drug offenses? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All in favor, say nay. Okay, the result is in favor. And the second question is, should marijuana be legal? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All in favor, say nay. Okay, result is in favor.
All right, folks, that was a yay for both questions. We're going to throw it down to the floor with Alex and Liz to see what's going on down there.
Yeah, they voted yes for both. Yeah, honestly, it was more or less what I expected. Liz, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how people are very focused on rehabilitation for people with addiction and do not view it as a crime, but rather something that needs treatment. And I think it's very heartwarming to see that the empathy, sorry, that was the word I was looking for, the empathy for other humans.
I would agree, Liz, and I'm sorry to cut you off once again, but we do need to move. We'll cover this more in depth later, but we're going to move down to Dylan Walsh with electoral issues.
So one of the most popular ways to do that is a voter ID law, which would require a photo ID before you cast a vote at a polling place. Proponents will argue that this is a fair and simple way to prevent voter fraud and to ensure the integrity of elections, whereas opponents will argue that will argue that there's no point in addressing voter fraud because it's not really a widespread issue if you look at the statistics. And another serious problem, or another serious issue with the electoral system under debate is the Electoral College, which is the method by which we elect the president. In the last 20 years, 2 of the 6 presidential terms have been won not in the popular vote, but by the Electoral College. And opponents of the Electoral College will argue that this shouldn't happen, that the person who gets the most votes should be president, that no democratic system should allow second place to be the winner. Whereas proponents for the college will argue that it preserves the legitimacy of the office and helps protect minority rights in smaller states. So that raises the question. You can address, when you go up to the mic, either the voter ID law or the Electoral College. Go to the mics, 1 or 2. Let's start with mic number 1.
The Electoral College was made when barely anyone was literate because the only people that were allowed to vote were intelligent people. But we're all pretty educated now, so I don't know why it still exists.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
I want to talk about the Electoral College. It's an old system. It doesn't work anymore, and the popular vote actually gives voice to the people. And yeah, should get rid of it. Let the people decide.
Thank you. Mic number 1.
I understand the concern of many people for allowing popular vote. The idea that just bigger states with bigger populations would overshadow all the smaller states. But I believe there could be a bit of a compromise for this. I believe that instead of having it where in most states where whoever wins gets the majority of votes in the state gets all the electoral college votes, it should be that like in Maine where the electoral college votes is given out proportional to the vote in the state. So like if 2/3 of the state voted for the Democrat and like 1/3 voted for Republican, the 2/3 of the electoral college votes would go towards the Democrat and 1/3 go towards the Republican.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
Americans, friends, when I think about the Electoral College, the first thing that comes to my mind is 2 words: democratic deficit. A vote in California should not mean more than a vote in Pennsylvania. A vote in Pennsylvania should not mean more than a vote in California. Sorry about that. We as the people are educated now. We have access to information. We have the access to vote. We should be able to vote freely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic number 1.
Firstly, voter ID should absolutely be required to make sure that elections are secure and that that the same person is only voting once and there's no fraud. Although we should be sure as a country that everybody has equal opportunities to get an ID. Secondly, the Electoral College should be banished, and I do not agree with the popular vote either, because I think that to encourage more third parties in this country, because the 2 parties we have right now are frankly both terrible, we need to have a single transferable vote system. CGP Grey has a great YouTube video detailing it that I highly recommend you watch, but that will be significantly better than any popular vote or Electoral College system we have now.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
So I'm in favor of removing the Electoral College and having a national popular vote, because it's really not just who becomes the president. That's not all that you're deciding when, like, all that it affects. If you look at the Supreme Court between the Bush in 2000 and Trump in 2016, we've seen a significant number of Supreme Court justices who were appointed by presidents who did not win the popular vote, and I think we're seeing that effects now with in 2022, of course, the Supreme Court they decided to repeal Roe v. Wade, and an unpopular decision, and yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mic number 1.
So I believe that voter ID should be required to lessen the amount of times when a candidate will say, well, that's not right, I should have won, because that is really annoying, honestly. And then also with that, it should be relatively easy, but like not too easy for that to happen. Because I know that in some places, like in New York, not a whole lot of people have a photo ID because it'll be more efficient to walk to work or wherever you're going. And so, yeah, there's something else. Yeah, basically make it easier, but not that too easy.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
While originally created to increase the power of smaller states, the Electoral College no longer serves that purpose. We know Wyoming's going to vote Republican. We know California's going to vote Democrat. The only states that campaigners or candidates try to influence are the swing states, which means that the entire vote of the entire presidential election is decided by 6 states, which I think is undemocratic and unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic number 1.
All right, so I want to talk about the Electoral College. I personally am in favor of it because, well, smaller states, they sometimes have populations below the millions, which means that, say, like California would have and Texas and Florida and New York, all of those states would have such big impact on votes, so that candidates would go to cities in only those states to sway the votes instead of going to like these backwater states that need help. So like, for example, who does live in Wyoming? Those people need their voices heard so that Wyoming can become great again.
Thank you. That was great again. Mic number 2.
As a couple of people have mentioned before me, yeah, the Electoral College does not work because it just ends up making only the swing states really matter. Not even just that, but only in like certain communities within those swing states. But also, I don't think the popular vote initiative, I mean, because they're just not, and it would cause only two major parties to be made. Instead, probably a proportional system should be implemented where you can actually vote for multiple different people. So even though you may not think that, oh, this party is going to win, you can still vote for it with maybe your first one, then give a second vote to who you will think will win.
Thank you. Just a heads up, we have just about 3 minutes left. Mic number 1.
If we think about the average voter, a Republican voter will vote for the Republican nominee, and the Democratic voter will vote for the Democratic nominee. And average voters aren't as experienced in politics as the officials of the Electoral College. The Electoral College will be able to make the most educated vote as they are experienced in what they do and know how to get the proper information to make the best vote that will help their state.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
The fact that a candidate can win in the popular vote but lose because of the Electoral College is quite frankly not really like indicative of an actual democracy. We should allow the person who actually got first place to win and represent what the people want, because that is what a democracy is. The Electoral College was created in an era when we didn't have the access to the same technology that we have access to today. I think in the modern day, being able to pull off a national popular vote is actually much more feasible than it was in like the 1770s when the Electoral College was made.
All right, thank you.
Just vote.
At this time, we're going to move to a vote because our keynote speaker just arrived. Do you two want to speak? We're just going to take no more speakers after you guys. Mic number 2. Can we get sound on that?
I believe the Electoral College is dated and was created in a time when technology wasn't as advanced as it could have been compared to modern day. There was even suggestions to eliminate electoral colleges throughout the 1800s and over 700 proposals to either change it or eliminate it. So overall, I believe that the Electoral College, being that dated and being the fact that we couldn't count them correctly in certain times and areas, and now with modern technology that we can, that we should take advantage of that, and we should.
Thank you.
I believe that the Electoral College unnecessarily complicates our election system. I feel like if you were to ask the average person, they wouldn't know how the Electoral College works, and I think that kind of lessens the legitimacy of our system, and I think initiating a national popular vote will also help with the polarization of our political parties.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to the voting. All in favor of abolishing the Electoral College and moving to a popular vote system to elect the president, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. I think the ayes have it. All those opposed in enacting a federal voter ID law, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Yeah, can we repeat the... All in favor of passing a federal voter ID law, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. The nays still have it.
Next slide.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce a dedicated and impactful member of our community, Steve Malagori. A true local champion, Steve's journey began as a 2002 North Penn High School graduate. His educational path led him to Ursinus College, where he earned a degree in biology. Following that, he made significant contributions while working in the clinical laboratory of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, showcasing his commitment to the well-being of our community. Not one to be confined by a single path, Steve transitioned his career into sales, becoming a local beverage wholesaler and a proud member of Teamsters Local 840. Throughout his years in our community, he recognized the need for positive change and actively contributed to our community. His dedication and contributions were so impactful that the local Democratic Party asked him to run for the local Lansdale Borough Council, a position that the community elected him to in 2012. As a council member and member of the Montgomery County Transportation Authority, Steve focused on improving the very foundation of our community, the local roads and bridges that we rely on every single day. His tireless efforts extended to advancing community projects, ensuring that Lansdale and Montgomery County thrived and met the needs of its ever-changing population. But Steve's journey didn't stop there. Since 2018, he has proudly represented us as a Pennsylvania State Representative for the 53rd Legislative District, serving on committees that directly impact the well-being of our community: the House Appropriations Committee, the Consumer Protection and Professional License Committee, the Liquor Control Committee, and the Professional Licensure Committee, in addition to the Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee. Today, we welcome not just a politician, but a true community advocate, someone who understands the heartbeat of our community and overall the needs of our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm welcome to a dedicated servant of our community, a fellow North Penn Knight, Steve Malagori.
Good morning. First off, I want to thank North Penn High School for allowing me to be here. I am Steve Malagari, a state representative. I represent the 53rd Legislative District, located here in the heart of the North Penn area, Lansdale and Hatfield. If you are from part of Montgomery Township as well, I am your representative. I am so proud to be here. First, I want to thank the chairs up here for the convention, and this is a fantastic event that has been happening since the 70s, and I would be remiss if I did not say my thanks, and thanks to each and every one of you for doing this, and also to the person who started this, Mr. Jim Finnemeyer. May his memory be eternal. So I'm a North Penn Knight. I'm a class of 2002 graduate. I've spent the last year working very closely with some of your current classmates and also some of my fellow alumni on a bill that has just advanced through the House Education Committee. That's a pretty big deal, and I'm really proud of that. Last year, some North Penn High School students, members of the Student Government Association, contacted me about the cost of advanced placement exams. Some of you might be taking them or have taken them already. They explained to me how important AP exams and the classes are and the test results actually are for college-bound students. Most of you probably understand this and already, but I'll hit on some of the major points for you. Advanced placement classes play an important role in college admissions. So schools want to see the applicants that are willing to challenge themselves academically, and if you've taken an advanced placement class, colleges want to see those test results on your transcripts. They want to know how well you've mastered the content. It can affect your ability to get accepted into college of your choice, and once you've been accepted to a school, a passing AP exam, that score can help you get credit for college classes. So that way you don't have to pay for them when you get there. So it's actually money that goes toward you. That can save college students thousands of dollars. And all you have to do to reap those benefits is to take the class and do well in the AP exam. It's pretty simple. Theoretically, these benefits are open to anyone. But, and here's the catch, you have to pay to take the exam. And they're not cheap. They're about $100 a test. So that can be prohibitively expensive to a student, to a lot of students. So they're not actually open to everyone. They're only open to those kids that can afford it. And on top of that, not all school districts offer these exams. They're not as lucky as North Penn to have all these exams offered here. They don't have the ability to have these advanced placement courses in the halls of their school. That puts those graduates at a genuine disadvantage. Some of these concerned members of your class, of your school's student government association, came to me because they did not think this situation was fair. And I agreed, it's not fair at all. And we started to look at ways to level the playing field, how we can make sure everyone has a fair shot at this. We marshaled our resources, my staff in the Lansdale office and our researchers in Harrisburg all got together. We looked at other states to see how they addressed this and found that 31 other states offered some type of assistance with AP exams. There were a lot of discussions that ensued after that. And finally, we crafted a bill that not only aims to address the cost of AP exams, but also the quality of and availability of AP courses in Pennsylvania. The Access to Advanced Courses for All Students grant program would allocate funding for school districts to train educators for math, English, language, arts, science, social studies, and computer science AB classes. Additionally, the exam fee grant funded through the Pennsylvania Department of Education would reimburse school districts for every student that takes an AP exam, all of which would allow for a more equitable and fair educational system. As I mentioned, this bill has now passed the House Education Committee. This is a huge accomplishment. Most of the bills die in committee and never make it to the House floor for a vote, but ours will make it to the House floor for a vote. Then hopefully after it passes through the House, it'll get a vote in the Senate and be signed into law by Governor Shapiro. I'm really proud of this bill, because I'm proud of the work that went into it. I'm proud of your fellow students for seeing an inequity and wanting to right it. I'm proud of the hard work that they put into looking for solutions and for acting to make those solutions happen. And I'm proud of a political system that is built on the foundation of listening to its citizens. Our democracy is dynamic. It not only accommodates change, it encourages it. It demands that our elected officials constantly evaluate how things are done and suggest ways in which to do them better. That's what our legislative system is. It's a great societal suggestion box where we hash out criticisms and critiques, seek out areas of improvement, and move toward better ways of doing and being. And the part that you play in this process is absolutely vital. Democracy demands participation to thrive. It also demands care and protection. Benjamin Franklin, in his wisdom, he foresaw the imperfection inherent in the Constitutional Convention. Yet he recognized that with all of its faults, and that's a quote, the Constitution was a beacon of hope, a framework better than any alternative that might have emerged. In the upcoming 2024 election, as we have with us today, the stakes have never been higher. In a pursuit of a stronger democracy, we must be vigilant guardians against the looming specter of extremism. As President Kennedy once said, the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. This election is not merely a choice between candidates, but a pivotal moment in history where each vote becomes a beacon of hope, a declaration of our collective aspirations. So I implore each and every one of you to exercise your right to vote. It is the absolute cornerstone of democracy. Register to vote, make your voice heard, and let the echo of your choices reverberate through our republic. In the pursuit of a stronger democracy, we must be vigilant guardians against this looming specter of extremism. President Kennedy said, extremism in the defense of liberty is no voice, and moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. The challenges we face require unity and a steadfast commitment to the principles that bind us together. It's crucial to defend American democracy against extremism, to resist the forces that seek to sow discord and division. Let us remember President Kennedy's words again. The great enemy of the truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic. Now to you, Generation Z, the backbone of our future. Your energy, your enthusiasm, and commitment to justice are the driving forces that will shape the destiny of America. As President Kennedy urged, ask not what you can do for your country, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The responsibility to safeguard our republic rests on your shoulders. Embrace the challenge. Champion the ideals that make our nation exceptional and leave an indelible mark on the pages of history. I thank you for your time. May God bless our country, our Commonwealth, and our men and women in uniform. Thank you so much.
All right, well, we're waiting to hear what's next. I believe we're going to have caucuses and lunch breaks coming up. We just finished out with a speech from Representative Steve Malagary. Very inspirational, asking students to get involved in legislation and don't be afraid to reach out to the politicians. Owen, let's go over to you. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that this has been an absolutely wonderful debate so far, a great representation of just how passionate our student body can truly be about the nature of politics and the future of our country. And I myself am very, very excited about being able to interview Steve. My apologies. I'm very interested in being able to interview Steve just later today, just in a few moments. Getting excited.
Well, we can't wait to hear that interview. We're going to send it down to the floor a little bit. We're going to reflect on what we've seen. Alex, Liz, what are some big surprises, turns, twists? What are we thinking?
Certainly an interesting day, I'll give it that. I was surprised with the amount of unity there is among the student body on certain issues, I have to say. It was not something I was expecting. I was expecting a lot more arguments. I was expecting a lot more vitriol, but they were able to maintain, like, composure. I gotta say, we're doing better off than Congress.
That's true enough. I definitely agree. We're seeing a lot of unification, and if that's just the student body coming together or if that's our generation as a whole, we can't know for sure. But we're definitely seeing a lot of unity among the different opinions. It has been interesting, though. We had a few upsets in some of our decisions. I know we voted nay for continuing to support Ukraine, which did come as a surprise to some people. What are you guys thinking on that one?
Oh, I also found it to be a really big surprise because, as I said before, because the war between Russia and Ukraine was such a hot topic in 2021 and 2022, I thought there would be a lot more support in continuing to support Ukraine. So it came as a surprise for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree. And one of the things that did not come as a surprise to me personally was the vote to stop supporting Israel and sending funding when it relates to the Middle East debate. That whole situation. Was that a surprise to you as well?
Not in the slightest. I've seen lots of like posts and stuff on social media considering it. I've seen when people discuss it in like classes and stuff, the general consensus seems to be to stop sending aid to Israel, and yeah, it was more or less expected in my opinion.
I would agree. So let's go back to some of our original topics. They may have gotten a little bit buried under some of our heavier ones that came up later. We talked a bit about canceling debt, which did end up being a yes vote to cancel student debt from the delegates. Was that also a surprise, or was that expected?
I would say it was expected, especially because our students right now, they're about to go to college. This topic is very relevant to them. And being in debt it's truly life-changing for someone, and taking away that debt is equally life-changing and can really improve the status of life for a lot of people.
It's a very interesting take, and I would agree. And one of the other things that we looked at was raising the minimum wage while we're on the topic of financial discrepancies. We talked about raising the minimum wage, and I believe that was also an aye vote. Was that also expected?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. I've heard from people who work jobs and stuff like that they need more money for things. Like some people I know do it to support their families, and yeah.
Well, that is excellent to hear from both of you. Look forward to hearing more from the floor. Right now, for those of you just joining us, we're going to go to a package put together by our very own Carter Loback, which is just a recap of what the convention is, what's been going on here this morning. So take it away, Carter.
The mock convention is an event that takes place every 4 years in sync with the presidential election. You may be asking, why is this event important? What does it mean? We talked to some teachers and students involved in this event to understand why they value this opportunity. Mr. Haley spoke with us about why he chose to be the host of mock convention and why it is so important for students.
When I became a teacher, one of the things that I believed is real is that students learn better when it's hands-on, as opposed to when someone's standing in front of the room telling them what they should be, what they should know.
In this political climate, it is important to stay informed. We spoke with Senior Avery Brown on why he believes it is vital to know how to vote.
I think it's important to really stay informed about the political climate. I feel like we're all going to be adults soon, and we're voting next year, so I think it's really important to stay informed about the different candidates.
With the presidential election around the corner, it's best that students become educated on all different aspects of politics. Mr. Klaus spoke on the significance of being a well-rounded individual.
It just has real-life implications for a lot of these students who are graduating, kind of getting a feel, especially with the presidential election coming up at the end of the year. It's going to have a huge significance for some students who can become more politically active as they age in.
Overall, students will leave with new ideas that were discussed throughout the debate. I'm Carter Lobach, reporting for North Penn Television.
Thank you, Carter, for that excellent information for those of us who weren't able to join for the beginning of our broadcast. Now we have Representative Steve Malagary here in the studio with us. We're going to give it over to Owen for a little interview.
Indeed we do. Welcome, State Rep. My apologies. Welcome, State Representative Steve Malagary, and sorry about messing up your name earlier. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate being here.
So let's just start off with some first impressions. What are you making of the mock election so far, and both conceptually and also in its current execution?
Well, first off, democracy is worth saving, and democracy is worth fighting for. And to see the student body fight in the way that they are and stand up for what they believe in a very respectful manner is comforting. It's sobering, and it's a breath of fresh air, actually.
Indeed it is. Any particular issues that catch your eye?
So I walked in and I listened to a little bit of the debate on whether or not a federal voter ID should be enacted, and I listened to the vote, and you have to have a couple different ways of voting, and I heard that the noes had it. We have the ability in this country right now to potentially in the Commonwealth put forward a voter ID law, and there are challenges with that. While we could say that yes, you have an ID to go buy things at a store or go you have to show an ID for several different things in life that show up. We do have voter ID in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We actually show our ID the first time we show up to our voting precinct, and then from that point forward, your people working behind the desk in your election office are the ones that recognize you each and every day based on your signature, and you show up and you have already shown your ID. So we could theoretically see a day in which this happens, but in my own opinion, I mean, we already have it. So I don't think we need to go much further than that.
Gotcha. And I know you in your wonderful speech earlier already kind of touched on this subject, but do you just have a broad overarching statement on the importance of government education in high schools and just everywhere around the country?
So one of the ways in which I like to run my daily life is always through educational moments, and one of those moments was when North Penn students reached out to me asking about AP exams, for example. They wanted to know how to pay for them. The idea was, let's get the school district to pay for our AP exams, and I said, well, why should we do that? Why not we come up with a way in which we can get the Commonwealth involved in this, and why don't we draft a bill and get that going? So that educational component was able to teach the whole process of how government works, how the bill process works, how it runs through the Senate, through the halls of the House, and also the halls of the Senate, and then eventually to the governor's desk. That process in and of itself was eye-opening, not just for the current students who are here at North Penn, but some of them that are now graduates and alumni as well. And that, in a way, for me, is the way in which I like to teach about civic duty. And today, I spoke a little bit about defending democracy, and how important it is that we continue to cherish it. President Kennedy spoke many ways in which how we ask not what our country can do for us, but what can we do for our country? That's correct. We need to ask that question. What can we continue to do? Because if we sit back and expect that something's going to happen, well, we're the ones that are supposed to make it happen. And we're the ones that are there in the moment at that time to make that change that needs to happen. So democracy is a really important thing. Getting involved is probably another thing I would stress for the student body. Get involved in the process. Start going to meetings. Start paying attention. Start reading credible news sources. Understand real journalism and understand the work that goes into it, investigative journalism, and how that's important in making sure that you have credible sources that you look to for information. Be a part of this process, be a part of this American experiment, be a part of our democracy.
Undoubtedly. It's very important to try and get involved in everything like that. And I know you walked in a little bit late, but obviously we have some very involved students here right now, some very impassioned speakers.
Sure.
Any particular quotes from any of the student audience catch your eye or catch your ear, I guess?
Off the top of my head, I didn't have a favorite, but there were a lot. So
Gotcha.
I would just say everyone did a really good job.
That's understandable. Yeah, no. And I think I can very much corroborate that statement. Everyone here has been excellent so far. I guess you're a North Penn alumni. How's it? Well, actually, it looks like we're just about out of time. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Going to be sending it back to Anna at the desk.
Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks, Mr. Malagary. Lovely to have you in the studio. Some very inspirational advice and some words of wisdom. Look forward to hearing more from you in the future. We're going to throw it over to a package from our very own Rayat Kareem, who's been giving us some advice on how the students at North Penn can handle our perspectives and our different ideas and how we can respect everyone. Rayat?
All right, well, today's a great day here at North Penn High School. I'm really excited to see it. I've heard a lot about it in all the years that it's been in place. It's really important for our students to come out and let their voices be heard, be respectful, just kind of learn the democratic process.
Here during the mock convention, we've heard various angles and viewpoints. This event has allowed students of diverse backgrounds to voice their opinions and consider viewpoints of others they might not have otherwise.
I'm hearing opinions that I didn't know people had. I'm hearing people talk in ways I didn't know they could. And so I'm genuinely enjoying this, and I think it's good for our school.
At first, students were hesitant to speak, but after a few students were brave enough to state their opinions, the ice was broken. We had a lot of people stand up for various discussions and at times even refuting each other's points. But overall, debate was civil and the morning session opened the door for new information for students to consider.
North Penn is known for having so much diversity and so many different people here that it's nice to hear different views on like major topics. A lot for the student loan debt, I didn't know a lot of the information, and so they really kept my attention with how they were talking about it, and I can tell who's had like Mr. Monero for debate just from like the way they go about things. But I think they're definitely keeping everyone well informed and like still interested in everything they're talking about.
Sure. Is there anything you've heard today that you found surprising or just interesting from the student body?
The last issue that they talked about, Ukraine, I was surprised in that the fervor of the crowd was against more aid to Ukraine. That took me by surprise.
After all this positive feedback from the morning session, we're excited to see what happens in the afternoon. I'm Ryan Kareem, reporting for NPTV.
Thanks, Raya. We're very excited to see what happens in the afternoon, too. Speaking of, we're going to recap the morning. Let's throw it over to Owen with his thoughts. Owen?
It's been a wonderful opportunity here, being able to interview quite a few wonderful speakers. I feel like the morning's been going great. It's great to see such civil, calm discussion over such divisive topics, being able to just say something intelligent despite our own differences and get together to debate. It's just been wonderful, and I can't wait to see how this continues in the afternoon. I think that's about all my thoughts. Send it back to Anna.
Thanks, Owen. And we're going to send it down to the floor with Liz and Alex for their final thoughts. Liz, Alex, what are you guys thinking?
I think today was a really wonderful experience. I got to explore how political parties are able to nominate candidates, and I got to watch so many debates and so many points of views and different perspectives, and I just think it's a really great experience, and I'm so honored to be able to commentate on it, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, this school, the fact that we're able to do this it's an incredible opportunity. I'm like Liz said, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be here to commentate and share it with the community. So
well, we are happy to have you here. And again, since we unfortunately won't have you with us for the afternoon session, we will have to say goodbye. But I want to extend a huge thank you to both you, Liz, and you, Alex, from everyone here in the studio. You're doing great. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming down and sharing your thoughts.
No, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I've had a great time. So.
Well, the delegates are still on lunch break, but we are going to wrap it up here. So we will see you with our afternoon session, where we will be having our mock election portion to decide who we will nominate for the 2024 presidential election. We'll see you after the break.